Okay. Okay, it is 2:31 and a quorum of the board is present, so we will begin the meeting. I have a really fun thing to do in the beginning of this meeting, which is to give out some employee length of service awards. And I'll move up to the head here. The first one is to Phil Olivetti. And it's been 5 years that you have been here at the board, and which is a year longer than I've been here at the board. But terrific. We appreciate all your hard work. Phil, as you know, works in registration, the all-important registration area, as is all the areas. But thank you. I hope we'll be here a lot longer than 5 years. Thank you. Next, we're doubling up here, and we have a 10-year service award for Ryan White. And wow, Ryan, we know how important you are to our operation. And 10 years, I bet it seems like yesterday.
It's been a while.
Congratulations, and make it another 10 with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Gonda, who we're glad is here. Matter of fact, I was thinking that we might do this in May at our final meeting of our particular board.
Might not make it.
And that's right. Yeah, Michelle probably won't. And Michelle works in so many areas. I think of you mostly when we're doing the canvas, which is when you're busy nonstop, but all kinds of translation activities as well on the side. And her award is for 15 years of service. And
it's been a long 15.
Stay with us. Have good child care. Don't
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last one just absolutely bowls me over. No stranger to anybody here. 30 years of service, Marjorie Rohr. I know, nobody would believe that. Marjorie wears many hats, as you know, and being our budget guru, and we'll be dealing with that a little later in the meeting, and has really been wonderful keeping us on track with that. And then communications, which is our other all-important area. So I can't believe 30. I'd say make it another 30,
no.
Margie, but how about 20?
No. I've got my date.
Well, that's really wonderful. It says a lot about an organization to have people that are serving that length of time as well as everybody here. And, of course, we appreciate everybody's wonderful hard work. So, now we will move to public comment. Is there anything today? And the next item are any additions or changes to the agenda.
No, Madam President, there are no additions or changes to the agenda unless is there a need for an executive session?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Alex, I don't believe members, everybody here has met you. Alex is a new member. Am I right, Vincent? Vincent is your last name. Two first names. Okay. they'll tell you.
All the time.
I have a way of getting names messed up, but I think I can probably handle that. We're delighted that you and that Jim Shalik again is here to observe the meeting. Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes is the next item, and I know There have been changes that went back and forth, so let me open for discussion.
The discussion, Madam Chairman, election of board secretaries.
Yes.
There was two motion, which was second motion. By law, Robert Rule said we cannot have two persons move the same time. And the lawyer over here, they can tell you. I recall, I was looking, David, Denise was a little bit faster than Jackie, but Jackie was louder than Denise. So it's not bad, that's good. I suggest we just remove the name. I said second. Just make it, is
That's
that
fine.
by Robert Rule?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I know the suggestion was to say simultaneous, but, you know,
You can do
I
that.
know, but so
Well-
often when we have seconds to amendments, several people shout out second. I would be
Kevin,
hard-pressed to
what's-
say who was
what's the
first.
over-
Well, the minutes simply reflect what occurred, and what
Right.
occurred was that two people seconded at
Right.
the same time. So I had suggested that it just say that Denise and Jackie had simultaneously
Okay.
seconded the motion.
That-
The motion just needs to be made and seconded.
Right.
So I just, for clarity purposes, thought it made sense to include both names and
Both
to say
names.
it happened
I
simultaneously.
don't have any objection. Just be-
Okay, is that,
Yeah.
okay. Is there anything else in the comment section?
There was a motion at the end that I did not make. I don't know whether somebody has claimed responsibility for me. Yes.
I'm sorry,
What
what-
page number?
That's page 18.
Oh, okay, it was fixed. It was fixed. Okay. That's fine.
Is it okay? Then I
Well,
move,
yeah, as long as, yeah, delete my name, that's fine.
I move we accept the minute with the correction.
as amended?
As amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of accepting minutes as amended signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Margaret, we're up to the election director report, please.
Okay. Significant meetings that I attended since the last board meeting. I have attended several meetings related to the implementation of the new voting system as a member of the Project Management Committee. Rules and regulations, continue to make recommendations for the State Board staff and the Attorney General's office for changes. We are still going through the document review, striking documents that are no longer relevant, as well as recommending new documents for other subcommittees. And the auditing committee will be meeting for the first time next week. The State Board staff is holding weekly conferences to provide project status updates. Logic and accuracy testing. This week, the legacy system will be going out. They have revised the project timeline that at this time we are expecting the delivery of the units to Montgomery County with pre-acceptance testing in 8 to 10 weeks.
8 to 10 weeks from now?
Yes,
So that is pushed back again.
yes it is.
Wow.
There's, but the State Board is in the process of creating a viable testing process for the acceptance testing, and also the development of the post-election testing is also in the process of development. Same-day voter registration, which will be held only during early voting. Right now, the State Board has announced that the electronic poll books at the early voting sites will be loaded with pre-qualified voters that they have received from the Department of Motor Vehicles database. And that information will be loaded into the State Board server. Same-day voter registration, as I understand the marketing of this product, is not going to be marketed until the close of regular voter registration. The state board is recommending that because when you register to vote, you need to have a driver's license or have the last 4 digits of your social security number. In order to match to the same-day voter registration preloaded database, they're going to require that a driver's license be in hand
At the polling place.
at the early voting polling place.
Really?
And for same day. And the same day, their recommendation, and will be expected to implement it, is the same day, and provisional election judges will be jointly seated at the same table, so that in any instance, the voter can receive a ballot immediately. Provisional voters will be using the exact same ballot as for the ballot marking device. The only difference is if there's a provisional ballot, it's going to have a code at the top that will prevent it from being scanned. They'll get an error message that says this is provisional voter. And even though they will have received the envelope that they signed the oath and everything in it, you know they get busy at those early voting sites. And so this will be a way for the voting operations judge to intercept and say, where's the envelope? What can we do to, get this straight?
So you're saying it will not physically go in the scan?
It will not be able to be scanned.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? When the MVA sends information for what they call pre-qualified voters, does the MVA have citizenship information or not?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to
Because I'm wondering whether whatever the law requires about citizenship, we're going to want to know what it is, because obviously it could be kind of a sticky situation to ask people, and it could be a sticky situation not to ask people.
Well,
So,
if you fill out a provisional ballot envelope, you are required to provide that information. And I'm sure that the same day voter registration is still going to require that you attest that you are at least 18 years of age. and a
right,
citizen
but
of the
it's an attestation. It's not a provide.
That's what it is
anything.
at registration.
Right. Okay. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's going to ultimately be the same thing. No one
Okay.
needs to prove their citizenship to register to vote. It's based upon their affidavit.
Okay.
But can they demand a driver's license for same day without the same request from other voters?
Yes, because they're not. The person who's the same day voter registration person is not a registered voter. That everyone has to eventually turn in your driver's license or the last 4 digits of your social security.
So they're going through the registration process prior to voting, whereas the other people are just coming in to vote.
But I'll double check on that citizenship.
It's gonna,
because there is real ID license data. So if you are a non-citizen,
Right. Hopefully those aren't being sent to us as
well,
pre-qualified.
that's one of the ways we.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
I understand what you're saying.
all right, pilot elections. The municipalities have been notified that they have to submit their request by April 30th to the local board. Then I will pass it on to the state board. The city of Rockville has expressed interest. They've directly notified the state board of elections. The city of Tacoma Park originally expressed interest, and now they're not interested. But I will be talking to the city clerk there. Mock election.
Can I just go back? So this is if a municipality wants to hold an election on the new equipment, they can request it.
Correct.
Do they have to pay for it, or do we pay for it?
The state will be paying for it. And of course, some of those, some of the costs will be absorbed. Their own election judges, the ballots, they will have to pay for the cost of it. When we sit down and do the lease, we will ask them to pay any overtime costs, our overtime costs.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
When you say you asked for it, I wonder
So
if
does
that implied
that-
that was it.
I'm sorry. Does that mean that the city of Tacoma Park will be using the touchscreens?
No, the city of Tacoma Park does not use touchscreen.
So they're going to use their own system instead of using
They-
this?
They'll
Some other system other than
Yes.
ours.
Yeah, I can't speak for the city.
Okay, but and do we know why they didn't want to?
No, that's how come I need to talk to Jesse one more time.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot of the municipalities just do a paper ballot. I know when I was involved with Garrett Park, that's, how they are. They didn't use machines.
Okay, then mock election. Today we found out that the mock election has a tentative schedule of the last 2 weeks of October. And the general plan right now is for each jurisdiction to vote 1,000 ballots using both systems, the ballot marking device and just the regular DS200. And aside from that, it's all still in development stage. The media election results. The cellular transmission of unofficial media election results is moving forward. The state is meeting with the vendor on this issue. SBE and the LBEs are expected to use the modem transmission, and everyone's aware of the media and political demands. The process is designed to be a very simple process for the election judge. In fact, it's almost a turnkey operation. It's like 1, 2, 3, and the fourth step is the transmission. There will still be locations that, because of a lot of different reasons, mostly private locations, that we will have to drive in the flash drive. We do have a plan to get that flash drive here in an expedited manner, but again, we are waiting for the state to finish working out the issues with the vendor, as well as meeting with the cellular vendor to get this thing going.
So is the modem transmission the same as what we've been doing?
It's different. It's cellular transmission. It's going to be a digital transmission, not the old phone.
Okay.
90%
So we're not. So the number of lines that we have will not be a factor, or it will still be a factor.
I'm not going to answer that question till I get more specifics
Okay.
from the state board.
Okay.
But
I don't
plan-
think it's over the same lines.
No, it won't be. It
Right.
won't be over the
Right.
copper
Because
lines.
my concern is that we can make it a simpler process for the judges, and instead of having a modem traffic jam at 9:30, we could have it at 8:30 and have the same problem. So whatever solution we come up with, we just have to make sure that we have the capacity to handle a bunch of people responding at the same time.
Allison, have you observed that, this operation? You haven't, okay.
No, and the machines that we currently have are not equipped for it, so we haven't had the opportunity to see it in practice yet.
And this didn't exist in Virginia where,
No, they don't do a wireless or wireline transmission of the results.
Anyway, the plan is to have 100%, the state is planning to do 100% validation of the flash drives the next day. The touchscreen legacy system is beginning April 22nd. It will be removed from Montgomery County to the SBE Central Warehouse, and the disposal of the equipment is based on federal regulations because the TS units were purchased with HAVA funds. Consequently, we have to comply with the Election Assistance Commission and HAVA funds requirements. Additionally, the other meeting that I attended as well as Allison was the Presidential Commission on Election Administration. The issues that were discussed, we did receive a favorable review from one of the co-chairs talking about what a positive experience he had voting in Montgomery County at a community center, and I found out later he voted at an early voting center. So that was nice.
Do you know which one?
Well, I think it was either Ginsburg or
You mean Gaithersburg?
No, she's talking about who the chair was.
Oh.
I believe the
I
chair-
can give you
chairs were
Bauer
and Ginsburg.
And no, I can't tell you which one it was. Actually, there were 3 people that voted in Montgomery County, and they all had a positive experience.
It would be great to get a copy of their remarks if that's possible.
I don't know. We'll check it out. Anyway, the topics that were discussed were lines at the polling places, what's going to happen in 2016, The voting technology, the Election Assistance Commission is trying to move to get the technology certified. Early voting, there was a lot of sharing of information, and then the state data sharing. And so the Bipartisan Policy Center arranged for speakers from various localities to describe the latest innovations to the voting process. Then personnel, the board staffing level remains the same as it was last month, with permanent staffing and several temporary staff. We are continuing to perform list maintenance. We have approximately 15,000 voters that need to receive a confirmation card based on the fact that we know that they've changed their address. And this is based on information from the return sample ballot, as well as after we had performed all of the ERIC matches, we did another U.S. Postal Service change of address match to our file, and it had cleaned up quite a bit, but not enough. So there's another 15,000 individuals that we need to follow through with the maintenance list operation of mailing them a confirmation card, asking them to complete it, to give us their updated address, or they will be removed. Well, the process begins to remove their names.
What's the time frame on that?
Well, to get those 15,000 done?
No. For them to mail it back.
Oh, they have until the next their names will appear on the next election, but they'll be switched over to inactive, in which they'll be required to present identification reflecting their current address. And that's how we end up with provisional ballots, because they have to do the change.
There's no way to, when you send out the card, say, please return this card within 6 weeks?
It
to get
says,
to maintain?
We ask them to turn it in 2 weeks, right? Because the experience is if they turn it around quickly, if you ask them to do it quickly, they will, if they're going to do it at all.
Well, that doesn't, I'm hearing, and I'm probably hearing incorrectly, I hope, that if they don't do it, it doesn't matter. They can still vote provisionally.
Yes.
Yes, sure.
Right.
Because of the Maryland Constitution. I mean, if you remain a resident of the state of Maryland, you get to remain on the rolls.
The Court of Appeals has repeatedly said that the frequency in which one votes is not a determining factor on whether you continue to be a registered voter. So once you become a registered voter, until some affirmative act has happened where you move out of the state or you do something else, the fact that you don't come in and vote regularly.
So that law is inactive about the 5-year or the 2 elections. That law is totally gone.
Well, there's a little bit of a conflict between the Court of Appeals interpretation of the Maryland Constitution and then what the federal law requires in terms of file maintenance. That if you don't vote in 2 federal general elections, then you're to be removed from the voter rolls.
Right.
In the meantime, we're continuing to send you the card asking
In the
you
meantime,
to get in touch with us.
so nobody's paying much attention to either one of them. Okay, that's what I'm hearing.
Well, and the problem is there's a tremendous expense as a result of this in terms of all the mailings that we continue to do to folks. So.
And the number of inactive voters has continued to go down, right?
Is there any action that can be taken by anybody? Don't have heart attacks. I'm not suggesting this board necessarily, but is there any action that can be taken to tighten up that process?
This is really, the MD voters system is owned by the State Board of Elections, and the rules and regs are developed in conjunction with consultation to the State Attorney General. And we are
So we go back to the same old problem.
users.
Got it.
Well, the things that are being done, though, are being done primarily through the state's participation in the ERIC process. So you do have the state keeping up with when someone moves within the state. We do go ahead and move that person's address without having to sit and wait and having them on the
How do you
books,
find
both in
that out?
Howard County and here.
If they re-register, you can get it.
Right.
when they get their driver's license renewed.
So, but it is a more streamlined process if we can find that other person and they are still within the state of Maryland. As we are working through the ERIC process, if this is somebody who's moved to or from, say, the District of Columbia or, Virginia or some other place that's participating in the ERIC process, then we're able to catch that move more effectively now than we were able to catch
Is
it
Eric,
before.
is Virginia new in Eric? They weren't in it to begin with.
Virginia even on air?
Yeah, they are. I'm
Oh.
I'm not sure whether
Okay.
they were initial
It
or
doesn't
not.
Doesn't
And
matter.
then you
They
also
used to
have
be.
the relatively recent addition of the law that allows us to use the death files from the Social Security Administration and not just use the the state's files for that. And
Which is really critical because as people get older, they move, from wherever they
Well,
were
they die.
living,
Yeah.
or they move from
out of
here
state.
to live with
Has to be
their
renewed.
children.
And then the last thing I'll just mention is that it was recently announced. Right now we have the ERIC files. We also pay to bounce our list against the Postal Service's change of address file, and we have a troublesome process where they're separate, and then we've got to go through lists that consist of both. And by the end of the year, the ERIC project has announced that they will have the change of address data within the ERIC file, and so it will be a more efficient process. for us
Post
to
office
be able to keep up with
information
that.
within the ERIC files.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we still have to contact them and say, please update with us, but at least we've got their new address on file.
And the thing is, it's national. So if you move to North Carolina, we'll get that information.
How many states are in ERIC now? There used to be only 7, and I know they were trying to
Is it
get rid
11
of.
now? Are we up to 12?
11, and there's some states pending. There's legislation pending and other state
Do
legislatures.
we pay every year for that? Is that a renewable, or is the one-time fee just that?
The state pays some amount of money.
But
I'm
we don't
not
have
sure
to pay
exactly
anything to
what
use it.
We don't independently.
Thank
no.
you.
Okay.
Okay.
And now budget.
Budget. Margie?
Okay. In your packet, you received a copy of the latest spreadsheet for FY15, the current fiscal year, which shows us looking fairly good. We're, 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, and we still have, over $2 million in the budget. So I think we're looking good for this fiscal year. A little concerned if the state submits to us the invoice for the $575,000 that they told us they were going to, then I think we'll have to request a supplemental for that. But
This
in
is
terms
the,
of our expenditures,
575 toward the
new system, correct?
Well, and we raised that at the council hearing last week,
Right.
because I know there, is the position. Some of the members were saying, well, you can, come back with a supplemental,
Right.
da 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 da. And I asked Margie to speak specifically to that at the time, because we get into this area. It's not like you're coming in with a supplemental at the end of the fiscal
Right.
year, to cover this stuff. The state wants their money when they start delivering these things. And,
Are there any questions?
were there any questions? No, they said that they took the position we could submit a supplemental whenever it's needed.
Right.
And at that point, it would, be.
And while we were really talking about the FY16 funds at the council hearing, the same would go for the FY15. If we don't have the money in the budget to cover it, then we're going to have to put it through supplemental. And we'll have to see. First, we have to see if we actually get a bill this fiscal year, and then we'll look at the budget at that point. But in terms of our internal expenses, we should be fine.
Expecting to have to pay out of fiscal 15 funds for?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I
But
forgot.
those additional monies were not allocated to us in the beginning.
Right.
And so they've known from the start that should the bill be received, we would need to pay it. So before I move on to FY16, does anybody have any questions about the FY15?
I think you answered what's my usual question was, is there anything we should be, on the lookout for?
I don't think so at this point. I think we're in pretty good shape for the rest of the fiscal year.
Great.
So, okay. Moving on to FY16, for those who were not at the council meeting, Mary Ann has asked me to put a chart together so that everybody can have access to it, and I will do that tomorrow, but just a little verbal update this afternoon on the different items. The first item, of course, is the new voting system. Current costs for that are $2.8 million. We know that number is going to go higher. And in addition to that was $53,000, which was, if you recall, a combination of moving expenses for the ballots, as well as some changes that are needed to the election judge module for the new categories of election judges. And so it was the recommendation of the committee that we would handle anything related to the new voting system through the supplemental process. And I guess I should backtrack, and for the record anyway, the GO committee makes recommendations as to what items we're requesting. They will place on the reconciliation list. That reconciliation list, which contains items from every department and organization in the county, will be discussed among the full council, and they will make the final determination. Does the Board of Elections get anything off of its reconciliation list added? And so we should hear something on that within the next 2 to 3 weeks to find out if any of our items were funded from the reconciliation list. So I wanted to backtrack just briefly on that.
And the reason I've asked Margie to prepare a sheet, which basically I think it'll look like a side-by-side with, our request in these major areas, what the committee has funded, or partially whole or not at all, and what we still are hoping for. For example, the election judges. Well, she'll get to that in the report. I thought to have a simple, if we can have this as a one-page sheet, I think all of us need to reach out to members of the full council expressing our concern about the budget, certainly asking them to support the recommendation from the committee, and then just alerting them to some of these other issues. This is a crucial budget for us with this new system.
Do you want to do that on a formal basis, calling and asking for appointments, or do it on a email, telephone call, ad hoc?
I don't think it matters as long as you reach out to them.
I think however people are comfortable doing it, people might want to, contact one-on-one or go as a group.
You answer my question. You don't want us to do it on a formal basis. Okay. That's what I want to know.
And the next item they
have all this, let me just say,
sure.
Right? They received,
yes.
the full council received our entire packet and my letter that accompanied that. So, yeah, so they have that formal presentation. Yeah.
Okay. Outreach and advertising, we were requesting $237,295. Some of that was for purchasing media spots. Some of it was for outreach staffing, travel reimbursement, and that type of thing for all of the events we want to get to. The council legislative analyst quite accurately reflected that the committee members, as we all recall, have clearly stated that outreach efforts should be a priority, and so the council did recommend placing that entire amount on the reconciliation list. So that was good. Staffing for the new voting system was comprised of someone to help us with the project planning, which we estimated at $10,500, $137,000 for temporary staff. The current budget has temporary staff for the IT section. However, they only have them for a limited period of time. We are going to need to bring them in, as you all recall, earlier in the fiscal year so that we can go through all of the logic and accuracy testing and get the equipment ready. And so that's what that amount is based on. And so what the committee decided was that they would put all of this on the reconciliation list. However, because it is thought that the county executive could assign someone to us from the Department of Technology Services to help with the project planning, they noted that they might pull that $10,588 off the reconciliation list. One of the things that they asked the Office of Management and Budget to do was to work with the county executive's office and find out exactly what, in terms of personnel, the county executive would be able to help us with and what we would need funding for. So at the present time, all of that is on the reconciliation list, pending discussion with the second floor. Election judges, as Marianne alluded to, this was another two-part request. The total request was for $486,000. $114,000 of that was for temporary workers. As we all know, the entire election judge training program is going to need to be rewritten, and we're going to need to have staff in here to help us with that. So that money represents 2 full-time temporary employees and 1 part-time temporary employee to assist with that. And then we also requested, yes?
I thought the state did that. Gave us our judges book.
They will provide the manual, but what we have to do is take that manual and turn it into training material. Okay, so that, and I have not been in school in long enough that I can't think of a syllabus. Turn it into a syllabus and develop the materials in a manner that fit the demographic that is our election judges. So that's what we need the staffing to do. And then, of course, we have been requesting additional money so that we could increase the election judge stipends and increase the number of election judges. That request was for $371,000, and you've all seen the chart. It was very detailed on what we wanted to do. So what they did with this item was they placed the staffing money on the reconciliation list.
Which is it 2 full-time and 1 part-time?
2 full-time and 1 part-time. And the election judge stipends, and I'm going to read directly from the packet, basically because of the many additional demands on the budget, the council staff is not recommending funding for the election judges at this time. So we would remain with the current level of funding for election judges. It did not go to the reconciliation list. So that's, one of the things that is not even on the reconciliation list for you all to ask for when you meet with them. But
it doesn't preclude us
No.
from raising it with them.
not at all.
In fact,
Because I think we are very concerned with being able to not only keep election judges that we have, but also to get new people to serve. The real fear with the current judges is the fact that it's a changed system, and I think some folks are going to be fearful of that, and although we have to put the right spin on all of this, but it's going to make their life easier, not harder.
Right.
But yeah, that was disappointing, certainly, and we can raise it, but in the scheme of everything, it'll be tough. I know.
Yeah.
May I ask a question about the judges? Are they going to get a letter soon saying something on the order of, you're going to hear a lot about the new machines, we want you to know we're going to make your life easier, we're looking forward to teaching you, blah, 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 blah. But life is going to be easier, so that they allay the fears before they read about it in the paper and all other kinds of things. Just a quickie.
We have a newsletter that goes out electronically, and they have been apprised that there's a new voting system and that we're switching to paper.
Do you ever write a little editorial in it? How about
No,
an
I'm
editorial
not.
it's going to be
this is
easier?
Just to the judges?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are we recipients? And can we be?
Yeah. Did you sign up for election judge training?
Yes.
I took
Well,
I took
training.
election judge training.
Did you take it in 2014?
Probably
No,
not.
I took it before.
Okay. Well, we certainly can
I
add your
didn't
name.
get it.
We certainly can add your email accounts
Yeah,
to
please.
the. But I think it's sent out quarterly.
But I think
anyway, yes, something
there could be a
you could have paragraph.
special issue that and highlighting. It's a wonderful idea, and I'll tell you, it certainly goes along with what Councilmember Reamer raised an issue over our whole outreach that he didn't want people to be afraid and not vote because it's a whole newfangled system. So it's very important how we pose this.
I remember I suggested we bring them like a pep rally and tell a social event one evening or something, give them a little bit of pizza, whatever, and talk about the new system. I mean, just recognize them or something like that. Do we have any money to do that? How much it would cost to buy 3 pizza?
Oh, well, it depends. No, she said free pizza. It depends on how many of our 3,000 election judges show up. I mean,
Well, don't we
Bring
typically
them
do an election
refreshment.
judge appreciation event of some sort, or I mean,
We did one and ran out of food, remember?
That was.
yes, but how long ago was that?
No, it's
Yeah, I
a
know.
smaller scale.
It was
like
after
a
the presidential.
coffee, something
We,
like that.
we were not going to do an event until this fall. And part of that is that we were waiting for the RFP that is going to develop all the web pieces that are related to the election system, as well as providing information on an election judge, like job fair or something, so that all of that information can go out at the same time.
So the event you were going to do in the fall, what does that entail?
Part of it is waiting for the state board to give us
No,
information.
but once they do that, what were you going to do in the
Right.
fall?
We're going to hold an event not here
Okay.
because there's no parking. Someplace where that we can get some parking in an open venue where election judges can come in and see the equipment and interact with the equipment.
Well, that would be the perfect time to combine with, what Naheed's suggesting.
You can make a mock fun election.
And in fact, you should have two. You should have one App County and one Down County.
Right.
All comes down to money.
No, I know, but it also, I don't know how, when we look at judges, where our areas of difficulty are to recruit judges either. I don't know if we have the data.
Oh yeah, I can tell you.
Okay.
7 and 13.
Well, I think, based on that data, you should base the events
7 and 13 are
Election districts 7 and 14.
and those are the ones where you have difficulty, and those are down county.
And what percentage
anyhow.
do you send anything to those judges who don't do email? We have
Sure.
a large.
Okay.
We don't have that many
Yeah,
judges
it's
anymore.
smaller
Part
than
of
you
it
think.
is much smaller than,
Okay.
because quite honestly, to be able to be an election judge today, you need to be able to, prior to this, you really needed to be involved with some sort of computer
Yeah, I would
skills.
think.
Especially with the electronic poll book.
I would just like to go back to my original statement. I'd like to suggest that we do a letter to the judges, email, to your list as soon as possible within the next month, with a brief editorial by our chairman, information by you, a one-pager. You're going to be getting, you're going to be involved with this. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be easy.
Yeah.
Words to that effect.
You'll
Get your
hear
friends,
you'll
come
hear from
along.
us soon about
Yeah.
a fun event in the fall.
Be on the cutting edge of election technology. Get your friends to join you.
Cutting edge.
The cutting edge of election technology will scare some people.
Yeah.
Well, after you've said all the
We're
nice
gonna go
stuff.
Cutting edge of
backwards.
technology, going
Back
back
to
to
the
paper.
future.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to. That's what we want to avoid, obviously.
No, I
Okay.
think this is all a good idea, and we'll move forward with this quickly, and then make plans for a larger event in the fall. One or two events in the fall.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the next item in the packet was the election day staffing. And what we're referring to by this is we feel, the board also feels, that it's going to be important to have somebody in the polling place to assist the judges if they have any technical problems on election day. To have them in the polling place first thing in the morning, and to have them in the polling place last thing in the evening. When we implemented the current system, the Department of Technology Services loaned us some staff for the day to help with that. And so this is another item where it is currently on the reconciliation list but there is thought that it would be pulled from the reconciliation list once a conversation was held with the county executive's office to see if the county executive would be able to assist us with that type of staffing.
What I heard at that meeting was that it's more than a conversation, it's a commitment.
Yes, that
The council members said very clearly that they wanted to keep it on the budget to provide additional resources if the resources from the executive are not available.
And Councilmember Reamer actually took it a step further, and I'm not going to quote him correctly, but basically what he said was this was an item that could be funded internally and didn't really need to be put on the reconciliation list because there were resources available. So, but the ticket item, the dollar item on this was $77,000 for
How
that.
do they do that? If it comes out of another county office, don't they then have to worry about their budget?
Well, the way it worked last time, the answer is yes, obviously, but the way it worked last time was we're talking about 8 hours, 4 in the morning and 4 in the evening. And so what happened the last time was the employee was assigned to do this for the day. They did not go to the office at all. There was no overtime incurred. Mm-hmm. It was just their normal day's work, only it wasn't in their office. It was at a polling place at 2 different times, and in between those times, they were free to do whatever they wanted to. They could go home and sleep. They could do whatever they wanted. They weren't on county time in between. And so it doesn't cost their home department any additional money because there's no overtime incurred. What it costs is loss of their staff time that day.
Right.
And so that's why the conversation and, yes, commitment has to be had with the county executive.
So this is for early voting and general election?
This was for, actually the way it was calculated was for election day.
So both election days, primary and general?
Yeah. Well, no,
I'm
this
sorry,
budget
this
really
budget
is
is
just the
budget.
primary.
Budget is only the
Just the
primary.
Primary.
So, yeah. I think our thoughts were that, yes, we would need it for both elections and then phase it out.
Probably.
We would not need it for early voting since early voting is going to happen before the election?
No. We'll have
The
staff
IT?
there.
We'll have
The
staff
IT?
there.
We'll have staff there. The trainers will be there.
We
Every
always-
morning and every closing?
Yeah,
They're
and
there all
every-
day long.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're there before the election.
There are center
judges.
managers or our trainers, so they'll be covered. Okay.
Plus,
Floor manager.
you're not closing
I'm
the
the
voting
IT.
units at night. At early
Right.
voting.
You're only doing one closing.
You're not closing
Margie,
anything.
how do we arrive at the timing for these issues that are existing with the county executive versus dealing with our budget?
Marianne, I don't have an answer for you on that. I think that, the council committee chair was very clear with OMB and with their own legislative analysts that they expected a fairly prompt conversation with the second
So
floor.
presumably they're back there now getting answers to this.
Presumably, because when the council sits down with the reconciliation list, they're going to need to know what the county executive is willing to commit to and what he's not. Now, we're saying things, but I think it's important to note that, the county executive, our budget was decreased a little bit for next year over this fiscal year, but the county executive did not take any huge decreases out of our budget. And so I think we have to acknowledge that. And, we've got a special, unique situation going on that's requiring us to ask for more funding than our current budget level is at. But there were other departments in the county that had more significant decreases taken, and so I think it's important to acknowledge that we're asking for more, but we did not take much of a hit during the process. So, if that makes sense. So the final item in the packet, of course, was overtime. That's always one of our items because we just don't know when we're going to receive anything. We estimated $105,000 would put us back at what our funding level for overtime was prior to the recession when they slashed our overtime in half. And so that's how that number was derived. It was the committee's recommendation that this not go on the reconciliation list, that if funding was needed at the end of the year, if we had overspent our overtime line item, we would either handle it through a year-end transfer like they typically do with our budget, or we could roll those monies into a supplemental appropriation if necessary. So, yeah, I see that too, Chris.
Okay, just for the record, we are under a tornado watch, so.
Can you
Can't set a
ask,
break with the weather's.
Yeah, I know. It's
can you ask
well, they've been working that all
to keep an
day.
eye on that sky, because we can keep us, but if you can ask somebody out front.
this way.
If we need to evacuate to the safe place,
Where do we go?
The hallway.
The base. Oh,
we have a
we
safe
get down with the
hallway.
machines, right?
No, actually, better than that. So that was the outcome of the county council committee work session last Thursday. And again, as Mary Ann indicated, I will put a chart together and get that to her. I'm going to be away for about a week, but if there's any questions, you can email me, and I'll be checking email every night. So.
And I just want to follow up what Maria was asking. So, if we don't hear back from the county about the IT support, by the time the budget comes up on the reconciliation list, what is our plan?
Well, they're not supposed to come back to us. They're supposed to go back to the county council. County council staff is supposed to talk with county executive staff and reach an understanding or commitment.
When would they let you know?
We will know only in that we'll see whether things are on the reconciliation list or not. And we'll see what's added to the budget. I can I can send an email to our legislative analyst and ask her to keep us posted. I
think
can
that's a
do.
good idea, because if they decide that for X or Y reason they don't have enough staff to be able to provide us with that assistance, I think it's important then that it is clear that we will need to be on the reconciliation list
Okay.
for the IT support.
All right. I will send Amanda an email and ask her to keep me posted on that, and I will get that information out
Perfect.
to you as I receive it. The only other piece of the budget, we've dealt with FY15, we've dealt with FY16. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had received the memorandum that I sent out back on April 8th. I'm reducing the cost of the voting system, but we know that's not a reality. We're expecting more information to come from the state, but there was some double accounting in some of the figures, and so I wanted to get to everybody exactly what the cost was as of this moment in time, which of course is likely to change tomorrow. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had received
State
it.
did the balance, but we have to pay for it.
Well, we have to pay for 50% of everything. Yeah. So anyway, any questions on any of that?
No, thank you,
Thank you.
Margie.
You're welcome.
Great. I mean, yeah. a lot of activity in your neck of the woods. Voter registration.
State Board of Elections, real quick.
State Board of Elections.
State Board of
registration are we?
Oh, I'm sorry, voter registration. I'm jumping. I apologize.
I thought, what am I looking
Monthly stats were posted on April 1st. Staff, as I mentioned, is focused on list maintenance activities with the voter data files. We have 8 high schools so far that are participating in the voter registrar training. We have 4 more that are signed up with Miss Dorsey. And we'll talk about the high school registration later. Okay?
State Board.
State Board of Elections. The State Board's focus has really been on the new voting system. At the directors meeting, which I was not able to attend, they did present the new prototype of the cart that will be holding that voting equipment and how the ballots will be delivered. Staff attended the meeting, and they went over the various specs with regards to that particular black cart that will be utilized for the delivery of that information. Talked about the state board is going through a supplemental request that's going to pay for thumb drives, ballots, and the express pass ballots. There's also a discussion is going on with regards to equipment allocation by county, and the equipment for the old equipment is being delivered to the central warehouse, and all the units are going to have the cellular installed, but not all counties are going to use them. And Verizon is going to be the vendor to provide the cell system. And then there's unknown time as to when the training is going to occur for the new election management system that goes with the new voting system. So that's pretty much with the state board. Also, the election calendar has been revised, and if you look in your packet, you should have a calendar of what the expectations will be. It's this calendar. I tried to get as many holidays on there as humanly possible to try to give you an idea of what kind of time commitments you should expect. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's very helpful to see it this way.
Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Okay. And
Okay.
that's pretty much it there. Legislative report.
Legislative report, I have a handout. I'll pass it around here and this is just the elections-related items from the General Assembly's 90-day report on what legislation was passed at the close of the session. As Margaret notes in her report, the one that has the most central effects for us is the legislation that was changing the date of the presidential primary. That will be on April 26th, which is the best they could come up with to try to avoid the variety of different religious holiday conflicts and other challenges that we face in the spring season.
Is that later than what they originally were proposing? I
Yeah.
thought so, yeah.
But it's being held in conjunction with other states, which is how they ended up with that decision.
Oh,
I
really?
think
Do you know what
Delaware-
other states are?
I want to say Delaware and Pennsylvania
Oh,
are
okay.
going to be holding their elections simultaneously.
Not D.C. or Virginia.
Not Virginia and D.C.
It may have had something to do with the legislative calendar as well. With the session ending at the beginning of April. If the election were in the beginning of April, then those members of the legislature who are running for office would have a harder time.
You're talking about Virginia.
No,
No, here? Here?
No.
But there's not, I mean, not really, but I mean, it's different.
That was an informal comment. That was not an official position of anybody.
Yeah.
So.
The other legislation that you see here on the list that passed during this session was, first off, it used to be that an individual, before they could become a registered voter again after serving their sentence for a felony conviction, had to wait until after they completed any term of parole or probation. Now, once they are released from incarceration, it's a cleaner line on exactly what moment it is that that individual can now apply to become a registered voter again. There was also legislation that passed that allowed us to count the ballot of an individual who casts their ballot and then dies prior to the canvass. So we now have that ability. You now have that ability.
Does it say how far in front the death is? How far in front?
Well, they have to have signed. They have to have cast their ballot.
Remember that woman who voted for?
Did that woman ever go to jail who voted for her mother? No.
Voted
She
for
voted for somebody. No, he wasn't. He didn't.
She didn't go to jail. She pled guilty, though. The state prosecutor did prosecute her. And she pled guilty and,
Went home.
well, yeah, ultimately she went home, yeah.
She's home.
I think she lost her right to vote for a while.
Really?
Didn't so.
I think that was part of her. She worked out a deal with the state
It
prosecutor's
was a
office.
judgment before probation or something that the
Yeah.
board didn't. So that means they won't go and have fine. Right?
Any other hot button issues?
There's another bill here, and Kevin, too, can probably speak to the implications of this much better than I can, but a bill that does allow the Attorney General to seek an injunction to prohibit someone from committing an imminent violation of certain election laws. I don't know if that's something that has had any direct implications for us in any sort of recent memory.
No, it has not.
There is also a bill, the bill did pass, that requires the election director of the local board to determine whether a petition summary is legally sufficient before the petition is circulated for signatures. And that did pass with some compromise language that sort of broadened both counsel to the local board, and we could go to the Attorney General for assistance in coming up with that determination. I think it's 10 days. We have 10 days to determine whether the summary is sufficient or not. And then the bill that clarified, again, no real direct implications here, but clarified that the process of tabulating the votes for early voting is as subject to open public observation requirements as any other aspect of tallying the votes. That passed as well.
Okay.
Nothing earth-shaking, but certainly the change to the election date and the change to eligibility for felons who've completed their incarceration. That'll be a change to the voter registration form and the oath that applies as well.
How many of those are we going to get? Do you know?
I don't know. Operationally, that should clean up the process a little bit for how we determine that somebody has, has completed their term of incarceration or not. I don't know that it necessarily affects the numbers of those eligible so much as it just...
The number that and we can certainly look at the fiscal note, but when they did the fiscal note, there was less than 10,000 individuals that fell in this category statewide.
Oh, statewide. Okay, good. I thought you were going to say Montgomery
That
County.
would qualify for this?
Scary.
No.
Wow.
Lolita, do you have anything to add to
It says 40,000 here.
Oh, okay, 40,000.
And that applies
That's
to
state.
murderers and people who got caught smoking pot.
Well, anybody who's on
Anybody who's been
probation.
Yes. Across the
Felon.
board. Nothing's exempt.
Felony.
Felony.
Only felony conviction.
Yeah,
Who
felony
was on
conviction.
Not
probation.
misdemeanor.
Well, but that's still they cover what
Yeah.
Jackie said.
Yeah.
Right. Not the smoking pot.
Smoking pot's not a felony now?
It isn't now.
I don't
It used
believe
to be,
so.
I think.
Yeah.
Not
It's-
anymore.
Or selling it or
Okay.
something.
It's possession and selling and
Having
Okay,
more
no, I was
than-
just wondering, because 40,000 that they think of. So.
moving right along. That brings us to the legal report.
Well, I just want to follow up on one of these bills, which is this petition bill. And this is really the result of a case out of Howard County where there was, every 10 years, Howard County does a comprehensive rezoning. And they had a petition with regard to their rezoning. They collected enough signatures, and then ultimately the board determined that the summary was not fair and accurate. That went through the circuit court and then to the Court of Appeals, and they affirmed what the Howard County Board of Elections did. The Howard County delegation then put a big push to get this bill through that basically requires that the Board of Elections not only certify that the format of the petition is adequate, but the summary is legally adequate as well. So now the board is basically giving legal advice to the petition sponsor regarding the adequacy of a summary. This could be very problematic. The bill in Howard County, for example, the comprehensive rezoning, was an 875-page bill, and to go ahead and go through it, turn around a determination within 10 days as to the sufficiency of the summary could be a major problem. And I didn't like this bill for another reason, which is Margaret can either contact me or contact the Attorney General, but the petitions that we see are petitions to county laws and county charter amendments. Really, I always thought the county attorney should be the one who should be tasked with whether those summaries are accurate, one, and two, whether they conflict with other provisions of either the code or the charter. So I can see this particular bill being a problem. Howard County, it's a problem for two jurisdictions, Howard and Montgomery County, because we get 99% of the petitions. But this is going to add some additional work and expense to what the board does when it comes to actually processing these petitions.
Kevin, can we ask the county attorney?
Well, I've always worked very well with Mark Hansen, and he has informally provided advice regarding
We
summaries.
can formally say, would you look at this summary?
No.
To certain,
No.
okay.
Because
And I'll tell you what, on some bills, like when we had the transgender legislation, you're never going to come up with a summary that everyone is going to agree is fair and accurate. I mean, we went round and round and round on it, and ultimately basically said you need to get your own lawyer to come up with what you think will pass. And really what this bill does is basically says that the Board of Elections at the end of the day can't challenge the validity of the summary. But as we also know from these petition cases, there's always a third party involved. The FOP, the firefighters, someone else is involved, either for or against the petition. And so even if the board determines that the summary is fair and accurate, that doesn't prohibit a third party from coming forward and challenging the sufficiency of the summary. So this is something to try and mirror what the Attorney General's office does for statewide legislation. But I don't view it as a positive sign with regard to what we're going to have to do in terms of giving a legal opinion regarding the fairness and accuracy of summaries coming forward.
Okay.
That was
And
it.
that's our only issue today?
That's it.
Okay. So that brings us to old business. The Joint Audit Committee.
I also have some copies of correspondence here that were not included in your packet. The first that I am circulating, Lisa, they're going to come around to you, and then if you can, if you wouldn't mind handing them to those around the edge, that would be great. The first letter you're going to receive, and this is all pursuant to what you decided to do in the last board meeting, is a letter to the Administrator of the Motor Vehicle Administration articulating both appreciation for the changes to the programming that were done in January, for the experience that the voter has at the Motor Vehicle Administration in the process of registering to vote or making corrections, and also outlining remaining and additional concerns. The second letter is a letter to the co-chairs of the General Assembly's Joint Audit Committee, reiterating effectively the initial request for a comprehensive audit, providing them with a copy of our letter to the Motor Vehicle Administration, and suggesting that they conduct their follow-up that they had committed to doing previously, a 6-month follow-up, that they conduct that as part of their August audit of the Motor Vehicle Administration.
This came about as a result of the last board meeting, and where we all, we had that very helpful side-by-side that Allison had prepared. And so then Allison put a draft together for both letters, which I then worked with her on, and that's how we came up with this and got them out last week, I guess. They were sent forward. So we will wait to hear, but as we indicated at last month's meeting, we're staying on top of this issue and continue to find issues that need to be resolved, and we want the joint committee of the legislature to be aware that there are still issues there, and reminding them about that August audit that is a routine audit taking place for the motor vehicle department, where it would be a good vehicle to continue to raise the issues.
The item on the last item on the letter to the Administrator of the Motor Vehicle Administration references some attachments. We can provide those to any board member who wants it. We had not gone through to sort of make separate copies of what needed to be redacted or not redacted for the public or for the board members. We can certainly provide those to you. But what they are is effectively screenshots and some correspondence with one particular voter who voted after, or who went to the Motor Vehicle Administration after these changes took effect at the Motor Vehicle Administration, and had some concerns that were symptomatic of some other problems that we're continuing to have, particularly with mailing addresses. And we had not gone into detail on that in previous correspondence, but because it is a case that we're seeing that one would think would have been corrected based off the changes that the Motor Vehicle Administration made in January, and yet appears not to be. We were keeping that issue in the forefront. Absolutely.
Well, I took my 92-year-old stepfather to get his license renewed last week or 2 weeks ago, and they have changed some things. I mean, the individual does do all of the interaction on the screen, hits all of the, it basically goes screen by screen. And I asked the person who was helping us at MBA, and they did say that this is a recent change within the last few months. And she actually said she kind of welcomed it because it doesn't put the employee in the position of having to go ahead and do all those things. So it's really the customer's the one going from one screen to another. So.
Was that in Montgomery County, the MBA you went to? Was this,
No, it was in Salisbury.
Was there a screen at the end, a summary?
Summary, no. There's still
I mean,
not a
that's
summary.
there
that's the
isn't a
thing
summary.
that drives.
I'm
us.
going in next week. I'm going to check it. I got in the mail, just as a sidelight, I got in the mail 2 letters that said, as you requested, we're sending you a PIN number. And they both arrived the same day. I did not request it. And the PIN numbers were different.
Mm-hmm.
And I called and said, what's this for? They said, well, you can sign up or, do it by a PIN number on the computer. You don't have to come in. And they said, just keep trying PIN numbers till you get the right one.
Just keep trying.
And then I did it, and it came up and said, no, you're too old. You have to come in anyway.
Right, because if you're, exactly, if you're reporting.
Wow.
It has me nothing to do with the Board of Elections. It's just a vignette.
That's funny. Okay. Voter registration. Was there another?
Voter registration, David had asked to review the 2013-2014 high school statistics, and basically, as you know, we are invited to the schools. The program director in the past has been Karen Crawford. The new program director is a Christy Rossini, and she has taken over this program. Beginning in 2010, there was a Senate Bill 292 that, after much litigation, and Kevin can talk about all of the litigation that was involved in 16 and 17-year-olds being allowed to vote, we have seen fewer individuals that are between the ages of 16 to 18 coming through the high school registration process. I met with Ms. Rossini, and I also met with her because the high school voter registration program is conducted during the student government elections month, as well as when the election is held for the member of the school board, the student member of the school board. That election generally occurs in April. In April is when we have our election. So what I had asked Ms. Rossini is if it's possible for us to go into schools earlier, like February or January. And I've met some resistance. So
What was the basis of the resistance?
Would be work for her. I'm sorry.
Her program was the student government, and that's what her focus was. So basically what I did was I contacted the school system and have been provided the name of a Mrs. Rubin. And you know what? I don't have the right name.
When you say you contacted the school system, who do you mean?
I contacted the school system, Robin Capino.
Can I ask you a question? You said a student government. You mean when they have their SGA elections early in the year?
Yeah, their election is in April, according to Ms. Rossini. Her name is Rochelle Rubin.
Probably for next year, Grace.
That's what I'm thinking. That
Yeah.
So
that
it's the
makes
April rolling into whoever's
Right,
going to be
whoever's going to be
next
there
year.
the following year.
Right, just like we have elections in November. for the people that will be sworn in December.
Is that also
January.
when they elect the student
that's what she said,
representative?
Right.
Right.
But
the-
I thought, and I did do some research between the last meeting and now. My impression was from when we discussed this, I guess it was at our last meeting or the one before, I've lost track, that that particular time of year is potentially problematic in schools as well as for us. Which was confirmed to me by the person I spoke with, who suggested that the fall is actually the best time, especially in an even number year where that's when there's the greatest interest in registering to vote, and that doing this at the same time as the student government election, the student member of the board election, it tends to get lost more because of all the other activity going on.
So doing it in the fall would be geared more to the general election, I guess. Right?
Yeah. But if you did it, I mean, you could still do it this fall and have it be geared towards the primary election. I mean, there's a number of different ways to do it. I mean, February obviously would be closer to the primary election for this particular election coming up, and I suppose that the interest in the election might be in the primary might be at its peak in February.
Yeah.
But we also have to look at kind of the school calendar as well. I don't know when testing is. I don't,
Well,
and all that kind of stuff.
the April. Besides the
April.
This was, I think, one of the biggest differences that, I mean, this program started in 1972.
Yeah.
I was still in high school. So, I mean,
I won't tell you where
that was
I was working.
when individuals, for the first time, were allowed to register to vote when they were 18 years of age. Since that time, we have now all of this from media reports and my teacher friends. We have all this Common Core Common testing that has to be performed,
Right.
and
Wow, that's
April
Yeah.
seems to be
Yeah.
the sweet spot there. So I think
when you say the sweet spot, meaning that's when they
that's
do
when
their
they
testing.
do it, right?
Yeah,
And
so
so
not
I
the sweet spot for us. It's
right
you
for
know,
them, it's
yeah.
the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I told them that we had changed the election date, I mean, I thought she was going to have a heart attack. She goes, "No, it's April 5th." No, the legislature changed it.
I wonder
Surprise.
if there's a place, and I'm not sure what, but I wonder if there's a place for the PTA in this. I wonder if we asked the PTA to help with registration. It's the parents of the kids. They're organized, they're in the school, and they're influential. And I don't know quite how, but it just comes to mind that might be a place, a group for us to work with in the high schools.
Also a place for the students, because many of them are already registered, and nothing like having your peers telling you that something's important. Which I think is the whole theory behind how we handle the drive.
The theory is that you do have students registering students, and then you're going to have a better participation rate. And I think what I would like to do is to work with Ms. Rubin. The school system is aware that we're not pleased. The drop-off, at this point we only have 7 high schools, or 9 public high schools and 1 private high school involved. Though since that time, that's for 2015.
Okay.
Though Lolita did inform me that 4 more high schools did call and setting up registrar training. But we have
That's
2
still
venues.
pretty amazing for a county like this. I just would expect that to be a much higher number.
Me too.
But if we were to make the suggestion of a fall time period, thinking of doing something this fall, I just don't know whether that's going to translate enough for
Right.
for people to be thinking of
about the spring.
next spring's election.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing it necessarily. I would like to propose that we write something to either the school board or the superintendent to express our concern about this. I think it might give some extra ammunition to Margaret in her discussions, because it's very clear then that we're very concerned about this.
And that's what I meant about the PTA. It seems to
Yeah.
me that we ought to put them in that loop, so they're aware that
Well, we
there
certainly
is this program.
we certainly can
Okay.
copy the PTA.
We
on
can
our,
reach out to the
you know.
PTA.
This, who is Miss Rubin? Is she a principal? Is she a?
No, she's an assistant to a dean at the school system.
So she's in the Board of Ed?
Yes.
Okay.
She's
okay.
in the administration.
I
I think
yeah, and I wondered about the League of Women Voters in this.
Barbara Sanders, League of Women Voters, but more so the task force. One of our last recommendations did involve this, so you have also some ammunition from the task force recommendations, the final ones. But the League has always expressed a willingness to help out with this.
Great.
At the risk of maybe editorializing excessively from a staff perspective, but as someone, this program is older than I am, and I think the point that Margaret was making earlier is a very important one. I think that the timing of this is really a critical concern. If we're registering voters after the voter registration deadline for, a high-profile election, that's clearly a problem.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
The dwindling participation in students registering through this one channel, I think, is perhaps not something that you should be surprised by. I mean, the fact of the matter is that at the time this program was originated, you did not have all of the other opportunities to register to vote year-round, online, all of these other mechanisms that students are taking advantage of. And in fact, engagement by third-party groups is one of the main reasons why some of these high schools, one of the main reasons they cite why they don't participate in this program, because that school's sanctioned voter registration drive is some other thing that they do in conjunction with the fall festival, that they do with their PTA.
But you're talking
or
about having
that.
half of the schools not participating at all. We're talking about zero.
No,
We're
and
not
Right.
we're not just talking about numbers dwindling. We're talking about them not being part of it at all. Unless we can come up with data that shows that the reason why it's zero is because people are registering through other channels. This is like you say, this drive has been around for a very long time. It's been the main way that people have registered to vote for a very long time. Before we declare that it's no longer necessary, let's find out whether it's because of other channels or because people have lost interest or because we're scheduled at the wrong time, or
Or is it because it's not a priority for MCPS? I mean, if you look at the data from the last election, those numbers are really pathetic. And you look at the data of how many schools are not registered participating. My son's school is on this list, and they're up the street from where we are. I mean, we're literally a couple miles away from the Board of Elections.
which school is that?
Clarksburg High School. Okay, and Seneca Valley is right up the street as well.
Seneca Valley signed up this time.
Well,
In
they
no
were
way do I
they were
wanna-
MIA.
right.
But my point is that I don't think it's so much the kids. I think it's the lost interest of the adults who are in charge of these programs. Okay, and I think that translates, the apathy of adults not voting, I think translates with those who are in charge at some of these schools who just don't think that is, something worth looking into. You have you have pep rallies, you have so many other events that are going on during the school. It doesn't take much for a school to say, why don't you guys come and set up a table or a pep rally for a football game against so-and-so. It really doesn't take that much effort to do it. So to me, to see some of the County schools who are literally our neighbors that are in our backyard not participate, to me that translates that this is not a priority in our agenda, which is really a sad statement for a county of this size and for a county who says, that participation and community engagement, we talk, but then I don't see this being part of their agenda as adults.
I would just suggest that in terms of the benchmark and the success of the program, I would think the participation of the school and being out there prior to a registration deadline might be a better way to look at it than the number of students who actually registered through the program when perhaps the school may have just very successfully registered a lot of these people prior to that point in the school year.
Do we have a way of measuring about the other channels to see whether to see whether in fact what's happening is that people are using these other channels or whether they're not registering at all.
I believe that figure was in the voter registration report at the previous board meeting. I don't have a copy here,
that figure-
but I do believe we singled out how many.
You said there were.
It was a
said-
huge
it
number
was,
in comparison.
it was 4,000, but it wasn't explained. In fact, it wasn't even explained that it wasn't part of this.
Okay.
In that report, it said the high school voter registration drive was held and we registered 4,000 people. Well, that's clearly not what happened. What happened was the high school voter registration drive was held and we registered a few hundred people, and then maybe thousands of people registered through some other means. But can we get a breakout as to how many of them registered at the MVA, and how many of them registered when they were 16 or 17, and
Sure.
because before we declare that it's no big deal, I don't
mean to
think,
suggest that, but
well-
the numbers of students who are not previously registered, who are registering through this.
I
is a
understand
different benchmark,
there's definitely a big difference, because even just when they started registering students when they were 16 and 17, there's a huge difference in terms of how all of that plays out. But I do think that we certainly can't get the school system to make this a high priority if we don't make it a high priority. And I think that for us to make it a high priority, we should find out, what is actually happening here instead of guessing.
Right.
And there's absolutely no one from the school system that says they are not interested in working with us. So I would just suggest that we allow the executive director, Ms. Rubin, to work with me.
She's the executive director of what?
Well, she's an assistant to one of the deans of the school system.
There's no
Well,
deans in the
I'm
school
sorry that I'm getting I don't have the email
Probably an
in front of
assistant
me.
superintendent or
Yes.
something.
So I will follow up with her and report back to you next month.
Well, I think we also need to know a little bit more about how the system works from our end. In other words, the outreach we do from here, is that Gilberto that works in this area, or who?
This entire program is controlled by the school system. Okay?
No,
They
but who do we contact about running the system?
running the school.
This register,
The
is there a,
school system contacts us, Ms. Rossini, or Karen Crawford, and tells us when they are going to hold student voter registrar training, and tells us what days and where to show up to do the training. This is a program that it's students registering students.
well, there clearly is a communication
In
problem.
our end, who's in charge? Who is in?
There needs to be
Rossini.
more.
Now, when the school system
Ms.
calls
Rossini
here, who
explained.
takes the call?
Who takes the call?
Is that
I don't
Umberto?
care,
Who takes
but-
the call?
Lolita.
Oh, okay, that's what we're trying. Thank you.
So
So-
we wait for them to call us, but we never call them.
Yeah, that's the problem
I'm
to
just want
begin
to
with.
clarify because this is something
We
run by
need
them.
we need outreach from our end to the Board of Ed to say we really need to beef up this system here. Student registration is a big issue, and
I would like to hear from Rita. What's your
I
experience?
contacted Katie Rossini in January. And at that time, because she was new to the system, we wanted to introduce ourselves, and we also wanted to find out, what dates that they had put in place, because this is already done like a year in advance
Right. They
in order
already
to
know.
get everything in place. At that time, she said that she would not even be looking at the program until 6 weeks before. Then, 6 weeks before, I contacted her again to find out what she was doing.
I'm sorry, 6 weeks before the April date?
Before the
Yeah.
April date, because
Okay.
April
For the event.
1st,
Right.
April 1st through the 29th, that is the month that they had set aside. The 31st of March was the actual date of the registration drive. Okay, it moved from the venue from here to down on Hungerford Drive in Rockville, so that it's more central.
Right.
And then they had 2 different sessions, one at 3 and one at 5. There was like 34 schools that were contacted at that time to ask if they wanted to participate in the program.
By us.
And It's by the school system.
by the
And when they,
schools.
and
They're
when you
the
say that
ones
the
who have the
schools are
contact.
contacted, who in the schools are contacted?
Katie Rossini has a list of people that she contacts,
Right, but I
which
mean-
are principals,
Right.
and then the principal will assign someone who actually
So it's
is
through
the,
school staff, it's not through
Correct.
students?
And the principal
the
then makes the
contact
decision.
is, but then it's the principal who contacts the staff
I think every
person,
school
but
should be
then-
mandatory to participate in this, but.
But then it's the actual program that actually picks the students that will actually go out and set up the drives and run the drives.
Okay, so just to be clarified, because what I was hearing is that this was done by the school, and the school will call you, and you're just waiting by the phone, waiting for them to call you. You were actually very proactive, from what I'm hearing.
Correct.
That you actually called them not once but a couple of times to ensure that they participated in the civic process.
Correct.
But what I'm hearing is that they were unresponsive, really.
Well,
that-
she's doing her part, but she's not. I don't know what her part really is because
Yeah.
what she's doing is in the school system. It's not to us. She's not communicating to us. She's communicating to her peers, as to the different schools and who's going to be.
But it sounds like you ran into some resistance. And I would hope that when our staff is working on something that the board cares about and you run into resistance, that you would let us know so that we can weigh in too. Because what we got was a report about how great things are going and 4,000 students registered. And that's not the situation at all. And we are in a position, and I think we should communicate with the school system to tell them that we think that this is a high priority, and either request a meeting or something to get this higher on the on the radar screen, because clearly that person who is new to the system and probably doesn't know where this fits into all the other priorities, et cetera, is basically saying, I can't deal with this until later. And I think that, clearly if you wait till 6 weeks before and then there are serious problems, you may not have enough time to fix them. And if we're talking about needing to change the timing, obviously waiting till 6 weeks before definitely doesn't allow you to do that. Because if she had responded in January, you would have had many more options. So I still think that we should communicate with the school system in some fashion. I would certainly volunteer to draft something if you want me to, or call someone, or whatever it takes.
I think if we
Can I just
send
ask
it
a quick
some.
question before? I just want to ask, okay, when you do the voter registration with the schools, do you also do an outreach for some of these students to be judges?
That's part of, we've incorporated that into the program, and we've
Yeah, they
also
do that.
expanded the program so that when they are in the schools to do outreach for the judges, they're doing voter registration. When Gilberto is in there doing Future Vote, he's doing voter registration. So it's not like it's just a one-time shot, and we are tracking that. We track those. So there are other opportunities for them to register, and they're taking advantage of it too.
So that could be where some of these numbers are coming from, when the other activities that Board of Elections is doing in the schools, and they're getting some registrants.
Right. Well, but it would be great to know. Let's find out which of our activities are having an impact and which ones aren't. If the high school drive is a relic, then we don't need to do it.
And coordination, it sounds like if Umberto's going in and you have to go in, and we're asking somebody from the Board of Ed to go in, if you will, we want to make sure that it's all coordinated, that we're doing the school, there's no just pot shots, that everything Umberto is doing is coordinated with everything that you're.
Yeah, we met
hoping
together,
to do.
and that was one of the reasons that we met as a team here, so that when the election judges are out there doing their outreach, it is in conjunction with what we're doing. When Gilberto is out there doing his outreach, but remember, Future Vote are younger voters or younger people.
Right.
So,
lot
what
of them
he's
aren't
doing
eligible.
is different.
So what you're saying, they're not
So-
steady people.
Yeah, and so we
No,
wanted
she's
to
not
make
saying
sure
that
that
she's
we're
not
all
steady. They're just not
on.
eligible to
They're not
register.
eligible because they're the middle schoolers.
They're
but those
middle
middle
school.
schoolers are the ones
They're more
who
likely to
feed
be
into the high school.
to be reliable to
And
help
that's
the
It's a
why-
budget.
perfect,
Yeah.
it's a
And that's
perfect
why,
continuance.
and that's why we're trying
Let's
to.
bring this to some conclusion. If everybody's in agreement, David, if you're willing to draft a letter that we can call this to the attention of the
Superintendent?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
okay,
so. I
okay.
think so.
Okay.
And, to say that we've had this discussion and looking at numbers, and, we'd like to, set up a meeting to, talk with whoever is appropriate to see how this can become more robust,
Okay.
and let's, take it from there if that's agreeable to everyone. Thank you very much. Any other old business? Okay. Back to the gubernatorial follow-up. Update on issues brought to the board.
Yes, starting with the letter from the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, I'm going to do my presentation and then we will discuss the electioneering issues. The detailed letter number 2, or item number 2, detailed instructions. Chief judges not posting election results. The form that we tell the judges to use is it's in their election judge manual. It's on page 13.17. They are told to break it out by political party, and now in consolidated polling places there may have been errors on the part of the election judges, but they are trained, and it's a very simple process to print that out of the poll book. The poll book printer, and most of the time they tape it to a form that looks somewhat like this, and many of you probably have seen it. They will normally tape the voter count report underneath this and at the entrance of the polling place. So what that is, it's a error on the part of the election judges, and if someone brings it to our attention, we normally are able to contact the chief judge to get the corrections made.
So what was the issue that was the problem?
They were only printing out, according to this, they wanted the breakdown by affiliation, Democrat, Republican, other, and unaffiliated, and the judges only posted the grand total.
I see, just the total number of votes in that precinct.
Let's see.
So that was a failure then on the part of those.
On some of those election judges.
Okay. And these kind of things, when we come upon this, and it's noted, and the particular precinct is noted, and the chief judges, how do we communicate this back to them?
Well, if it's during election day, either I or Kevin will get on the phone and tell them, you need to get the right form up. If they don't know how, we can either talk them through
But this
it.
came after the fact, didn't it? I mean, this came
Well,
through
the
from
letter came.
Yeah. So
after the fact.
is there a way to go back to those individuals?
Well, we would include it in the performance evaluation by the chief judges, which went out months ago. But it would have been included in the information that as we made the assessment. So anyway, that's a specific issue, and basically. The information is in the manual. If they referred to the manual, if a judge is resisting and the party representative is there, they should contact their liaison that's here at the board, or they can call the board directly, and we can get this resolved quite quickly, and we have. With regards to number 3. 1344 and 1357, for whatever reason, the Maryland Department of Planning shifted the line of the precinct, and this was not done by the board because you control your own precinct lines. And so what happened was while we were able to catch when they took that information and it was assimilated by GIS, we discovered the error, we were able to fix it, but when we did a GIS update, we didn't catch it. We went back to the Department of Planning. Maryland Department of Planning discovered that they did make an error, that they had changed the precinct lines without the consent of this board. They corrected the precinct lines, and they have been resolved at the Department of Planning, with the legislature, and with our county GIS department. It was just an anomaly that came through the redistricting process.
So those folks who got the wrong sample ballot information are now going to get the correct information without our having to manually fix it?
Correct.
Great.
Okay. Number 4, Thurgood Marshall Elementary School. We were required to move Thurgood Brown Station Elementary School. They were shifted to Thurgood Marshall Elementary School because of the construction. They did receive 2 notifications that their polling place had been changed, and it was also on their sample ballot. Our intention is to return to the Brown Station Elementary School for the 2016 election, and we will make that recommendation once we get the final construction list from the school system, which we are hoping to receive in the next 30 to 45 days. All right, signage. There were several issues with regards to signage. There were signage issues at Gaithersburg High School, Gaithersburg Elementary, Matsunaga. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is partly because the signs that we have, the orange and black signs, I call them the Halloween signs, have pretty much come to very close to the end of their life. So we're going to obviously continue to use the ones that are actually capable of using, but we're also going to make sure that we put additional signage at all of these polling places so that it's more visible and people are less confused as to where they need to go to vote in those specific locations. I would also let you know that we are going to be required, because of the new voting system, the state has informed us that we will resurvey all of our locations. So this will give us an opportunity to not only look at the actual physical location within each of these buildings and make sure that we have the proper electrical requirements, but this business of, like, for instance, is it Oakland Terrace that the election judges, there are some election judges and their intent is, in their heart, is good, but they go off on their own and decide that they know better. So, for instance, they will change the entrance of a polling place that is ADA accessible for another location that they think is ADA, or they think it's easier. And so what we will do in that process is to identify, this is the room, this will be the entrance, this is what we expect to see. And then when we deploy the first time for the primary, hopefully we will have election judges that know and the other recommendation that I've taken from the staff, and I agree wholeheartedly, is that we're going to pack in the red folder, you all know the red folder that goes in the red bag, a facility packet that shows, so that they can't forget their packaging at the polling place. It'll be in the new black cart, and in it will have the facility, it'll have all the electioneering information, it will have the entrance and where the signage is supposed to go. That way, if there's any question whatsoever, you will know. There's a red folder in the black cart that you can look at, and you will have looked at in the previous 9 months, that says this is where the electioneering lines were that the board agreed upon. This is the room that's supposed to be used. This is the ADA required entrance to meet the ADA requirements. And hopefully this will reduce the number of, independent thinking election judges.
Well, sometimes it's not just their independent thinking. Sometimes it's the person or the staff or the ICV person or the person who is at the school who tells them not to use, like Gaithersburg Elementary.
That's true.
That was not the judge. It was actually apparently the person who was in charge of that building.
If we are informed, we make agreements. We have lease agreements with these facilities. We go over these schematics with the building service manager, I believe you. Okay, I understand, but I will also tell you that I know that the individual building services person that's assigned to that school is not necessarily the same person that's going to show up on election
right,
day.
and that's the problem that
And
we
they
ran into a
make
couple
the
of the schools.
decision.
But I think it's important for the judges to know or to feel that they can call you or they can call somebody at the Board of Elections the night of the setting up. If that person is not from the Board of Elections who's telling them that they're changing the entrance or they're making changes to any of the things that they have, that they should notify somebody here, like ASAP. Because then to make the changes next day, it's chaotic.
I'm sure it is. That's why we have them set up the night before.
Yeah.
I would hope that we're not encouraging our judges not to have independent ideas, just that we want them to talk with us before they implement them. Because I know from my experience on election day, I went to Oakland Terrace, where the so-called handicap entrance required using stairs to get from the handicap parking space to get to the entrance to the school. And I then worked with the judge to change the entrance so that the entrance to the voting location was next to the parking lot so that it didn't require using stairs. And I think that we should be ready, if it does turn out that our judges have suggestions that are worthy of consideration. Yes, they should follow the chart, and we had judges who didn't follow the electioneering chart, and we had a number of issues where people did follow the instructions, we'd be better off. But there are situations where if they do have a better idea and they let us know, I think we should be able to respond to it and see whether their idea is better.
And I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, no, I think
nobody's opposed to
people
it's when
might encounter a totally different situation on election day when they get to a facility than
Right.
what had been, operative before, and so they need to make an on-the-spot kind of change. But yes, it needs to be communicated back to the board.
All right, then let's see. We had too many people. So signage issues. I think I've addressed most of them. There's a request to add more signage at Silver Spring Civic Center during early voting. We certainly are more than willing to do that to make sure that we have
What is
several
that
locations.
related to? Because I spend hours there, and I was confused when I saw this. Is it that back entrance?
Well, there's the front entrance, and
Yes.
then there's the
Which is,
very
how can
easy.
you miss it? There's,
Yeah.
it's,
I don't know what.
and it's handicap accessible.
block to get to it from the
The handicap accessible is around the back
It's
of
on
the
the other
building, and
side.
there's not a lot. I can.
Both are
But it's just the
accessible.
steps coming up the grass
Yeah.
spot where all the signs are. There's no handicapped accessibility coming up from the sidewalk.
So we
Up
need,
that way, but if you come,
But you have to come all the way around.
You have to go all the
whole
way up the
length of
block.
the ice rink,
You have to go all the way.
or else come in the back.
and we have to just do.
There's the handicap one in the back.
I know there is, yeah.
So-
That's where we
so
take
what-
the stuff out
yeah.
at the end, yeah.
So we will certainly be happy to add additional signage to address this issue. 614. This is going to be 614, and what's the
435.
in 435? This precinct. This was a combined precinct. They have. Which precinct has always voted it there? First of all, this precinct was consolidated because of redistricting. One precinct is very small, the other one is very large. but they are in 2 different congressional districts. And the staff is going to recommend that because we don't want any incorrect ballots handed out in the 2016 election, we will make sure that these 2 locations will be separated. Okay, because one's in Congressional District 6, one is in Congressional District 8, and if anybody who has worked with paper ballots knows,
That would be.
judges they open the first bag of ballots, they don't look, even though you train them and train them and train them, and they will hand out the incorrect ballot, and then we will be dealing with
You're going
that.
to separate them, different
Yes, we're
buildings,
going to
not
put them
not
in-
2 of them in the same
We're
room.
not going, there will be no 2 congressional districts in the same facility.
In the same facility.
We'll have to
Yeah, that was my
separate them.
question.
I'm sorry, who was
I
together
don't- I-
before?
It's 614,
I'm not sure you have to do
435.
that, but, I mean, Allison and I observed the election for this system in Virginia, where there were 2 precincts in one huge room, but they had it divided right down in half. This was this precinct, this was that.
not divided, this is one.
This will be a highly contested congressional race on both sides, and it's not worth the nightmarish legal issues that will occur if our judges hand out the incorrect ballots. We have historically not made that mistake over the course of many years, and so we will be recommending to the board that you will separate the congressional districts. We do have a location that can accommodate the smaller of the 2 precincts.
Which is the smaller?
It's 435.
So 614 would stay at Shady Grove Conference Center?
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought there were a number of issues that were raised about Shady Grove Conference Center.
Well,
Parking.
Parking.
the problem.
being-
Do you want to address this, Chris? You and I talked this through. The parking, there is a garage there for parking.
That is directly behind the room. There's a multi-tier garage directly behind the rooms. We use, when we lease from Shady Grove Conference Center, the Gaithersburg room, which is one of the conference rooms.
You're
And-
talking about the Shady Grove University
Yes,
campus, right?
the conference
The
center.
conference center, the building
But
too.
we're
yes.
there and classes are in session?
Yes.
Yeah, the conference.
So in other words, we're sharing parking with everybody who's there at the university that day?
Correct. But there is huge parking in front of the building, as well as there's the multi-tier garage that was built recently behind, which is right at the corner of the building where they vote. And when I have gone, I have been able to find parking when I've been out there.
Well, the complaint that we received was that it took some people half an hour to find parking, which of course is, that doesn't even count any time they spend waiting to vote. Hopefully we don't have that problem, but you never know.
Well, I know when I went out there the night before, the judges had chosen not to put the signs out, vote here signs. They had chosen to wait until morning to put them out. And I know, I live out there, and it took me about 20 minutes to figure out where I was going once I was in the parking lot. So I think to Chris's point, I think that parking is available. I think that there is enough parking available. But I think what we need to do is do a better job of making sure that the voters who are voting there know where that parking is and that there's adequate signage to get in there.
And the staff proposal for 2016 will significantly reduce the number of voters voting there.
David, I was out there twice on election day, and so there's plenty of parking. Now, I do agree it's hard to find. I mean, because of the complex, you're not necessarily going to the right building, but there was plenty of parking throughout the
That's
day.
So you're saying that the problem is finding the polling place?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
which would be
signage.
Within that
Yeah,
complex of
because-
buildings.
Because of the complex
I
buildings.
can
mean,
imagine, yeah.
It's not easy to.
Unless you know that campus. is not
Why is this a preferable place than the elementary school where they used to vote?
The Stone Mill Elementary School is used for another precinct.
it is being utilized
By us.
by us as to house precinct 608.
It just seems like the idea of sending people into a university campus while classes are in session is a daunting one.
We don't use Montgomery College.
I'm sorry?
We don't use Montgomery College for any precincts, right?
Yes, we do.
You know, we did for 1347,
That's right.
you know, but that's also, I think that was at the Arts Center, which might not, itself probably has its own parking.
No.
Well,
Okay.
It has issues
Okay.
too.
And it's had issues, yeah.
with signage, can this be resolved? I mean, and
we
we're talking a
believe so.
lot of signage, because you
we
can come
see
in there.
if Dolly wants to say anything about this one?
I'm trying to figure that out. But
Can you come up?
We can't hear you on the recording if you don't come up.
And Chris, how many voters are going to be at the 614 for 2016?
1320 it says here.
The early April was 1320, 1,320 voters.
Okay.
How many are in
Very small.
6-8 that goes to Stone Mill?
2095.
2095, and that's
That's
an
what I was going to
elementary
suggest, why
school.
you can't put them together.
Right. They're both
I mean,
big.
we have more than that at Gaithersburg High School. We have precincts that have more people than that.
Are they same district now, though?
They're different congressional districts.
They're 6 and 8.
6-8 and 6-14 are different congressional districts?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why.
6 and 8.
That's
different
why.
colors, races.
That's why the
That
intention is
that
to split
area, you know, that's the area that really got chopped up. It's like, you know, there was that area, and then there was a couple different areas.
And it is a growing area, especially multi-dwelling. You know,
Right.
But I think the concern is people aren't going and coming in the garage and parking and going shopping. They want to come and vote, and it's really inconvenient to find a garage or where there's no parking right at the polling place.
There's not.
Well, the
It's all
complex,
separated.
the complex isn't designed that way. It's
Yeah.
like buildings
Right.
and the parking is on the
You
perimeter.
have, you
Yeah.
have some parking on the
How
Well,
far
front.
is
some
it-
buildings are more
How far is the
accessible
parking
than
from the
others.
entrance to the polls?
Well,
Few
are there
parking-
some alternatives that we can look at for this?
one reason that we're there is because
Because
we
there
are
is no
running out of
alternative.
alternatives.
Yeah, exactly.
But the parking garage is right behind the building now. We need to have signage where we get the people around that circle to that back garage. But where we are, classes are not being conducted. Where we are is a conference center, and there is parking for that conference center that is not considered student parking. And it is a multi-tier garage that's sort of kitty corner across the drive behind the building.
Well, let's look at it a little more and see where the site is vis-a-vis the closest parking and where we would need signage. If you or some members of the committee can scope that out with our staff.
Okay.
Where is the handicap
So
parking?
you're saying there is no other alternative
some in
to
the
have these
front
polling places?
It doesn't sound like there's another location.
And there's some in the garage.
There's, yes, in the garage, and there's a huge amount in front of that building.
But it gets full pretty quickly when it's on school session.
And where is 435 going to be moved to?
We're working with the fire department to use a community room at Trevilla.
Yes, there's a new fire department.
new fire station
across-
there. It's really
across
nice.
28. Yes,
Mhm.
that we're hoping they will.
Give us permission.
It's literally
Host us.
less than a quarter of a mile from.
Yes,
there.
it's just basically across.
So it would
28.
not be. They would not be disturbed as much to go.
No,
far.
the distance would not be.
But were you parking?
Yeah, with the smaller of the two precincts.
No, I
We'd
know,
go
but
there.
you're smaller. You're talking still over 1,000 people.
No, I think there's another
No,
precinct.
300 as of the
435
beginning of
is
this
30.
month. It
Yeah,
was 375
Oh, I'm
active
sorry.
voters.
I heard
And
1370.
so when we
That's
looked
tiny.
at turnout, we
Oh,
were
okay.
thinking that we would be serving about 200, 250
Oh, okay.
people.
That would be
Over the
really
course
good.
of the day.
right. No,
Yeah.
I heard 1375. Sorry.
Okay. Good.
And
let's-
that's not a sure thing. I mean, the fire station.
So the fire station would be large enough to hold both those precincts?
Oh,
that are
no,
now-
no.
That one's just for 435.
Just one.
For the
No, right.
375 registered voters.
Unless we can find a location other than Shady Grove Conference Center, the precinct will stay there.
Okay, moving right along.
Okay, the next issue that was brought to our attention was the Silver Spring 1347. The people that reside in that area requested that we move to the Montgomery College Cultural Center.
Yes.
There is a parking garage across the street. It's called King Street parking. The board did arrange for crossing guards at the intersection.
And so what was the complaint?
Parking. Looks like-
They did, were the guards, did they not use the guards?
We
And
used the crossing guards.
We did use them?
Yes, we
Parking,
did.
I think it was.
The parking is the issue.
Across the street? I mean, they didn't
There's
like...
no, it's on the corner of Georgia Avenue and East West Highway.
Yeah.
And the parking is behind,
On the other side.
back on, I can't think, it's a
King Street.
King Street. It's not,
Accessible.
no.
No.
I'm more than a little frustrated at this particular item because we went round and round to come up with, they wanted it here, the
voters,
community.
the community wants it there.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't know whether
No.
whether the central committee is in the same place as the community or not.
That's one, yep.
But remember,
I remember it well.
Yeah, I know. There was so much, and we heard from a lot of people from the community. You know,
They would still like to be back. This is the old precinct that was in Nova, and we could not get there. And
No.
so this was the best alternative that we came up with, but they're still not happy with the alternative. So
okay.
I have to say, I went to a meeting in that building where Noah is not long ago, and the parking was full. I had to park several blocks away. Parking in that area of downtown Silver Spring is just difficult.
They can walk to Nova because all of the condos and high rises.
Right,
they
they
can
But we also have that little scooter bus that goes around. I forget what it's called. Van Gogh bus.
The issue with Noah was that they were charging.
Yeah,
Oh,
$8
the
an hour.
fortune.
The issue with NOAA was that
They
the
would
last
let us.
time I reached out to them, they were working with their legal staff, and eventually the coordinator told me she thought that we should try to seek other venues, that she didn't think that it would be likely that she would be able to give us the Science Center.
Okay, going further, electioneering boundaries, we will cover the Goldman filing. We addressed that issue with the board in January. Additionally, the process has been completely changed. The the candidates will now file using a module through MD Voters. Let's see. And that's the end of that.
Okay.
Do you want to go through the electioneering issues?
Yes.
And then I just have a couple more.
Is that visible? Is that good for everyone? All right, these 5 precincts that we're going to go through were issues about no electioneering that were brought up during the general election. So the first, and we'll go numerical. The first one was Garrett Park Elementary. This was offline for a cycle or two because of the rebuilding of the school. when we went back, we reevaluated the lines based on this building. This is the new building. And these are the no electioneering lines that were recommended. Sidewalk on both sides, 25 feet off the front door, and then that grassy central area there at the end of the parking is 65 feet off the front door.
Is the front door not under that gray area?
It is, yes.
Then how is it that the 25 feet on the left looks so much closer than the 25 feet on the right?
I don't know.
I actually went to that precinct on election
I was
day.
there too.
And the 25 feet on the left was an issue because the judge had moved it further down, and then they moved it, eventually they moved it back when I got there. But, so I think that one's the correct one. That's where it was before. I don't know why the one on the right is so far away.
On this, I really think it's a perception thing. I went to the door with the wheel and measured out. And where I measured the 25 feet was about where she has the triangle.
The one on the right.
Yes.
Really?
On
I would
right.
think it might be at the far end of that little strip there.
Right.
As opposed to being on the right, it would be on the left maybe 25 feet.
Yeah, like where that shade hits the sun over there.
So what's the issue?
They were unhappy. We received word that they were unhappy with the lines. Now,
Who's the they?
The
Democratic
Central Committee, the
That was
message
because-
came through the Democrat.
That was because the 25 on the left, they had moved, the judge had moved this here. And when I got there, I moved it back.
Oh,
Or I should say, I spoke with the judge, and the judge moved it back to there because the map, I believe, said that it belonged there. And that's where it had been traditionally.
That would then have been
The
the
25,
issue.
well, I don't remember the 25 on the right being in
That far.
being that far, but the issue was with the one
But
on the left.
everybody was on that left side anyway. When I was there,
Yeah, I think that's,
it was the activity was on. There wasn't much. There were one or two tables.
right. I don't remember all the detail. It was kind of early in the morning, so there might not have been as much. But what I don't know is if people park on the right side, will someone want to be on the right side over there? And that one does look like it's kind of far away compared to the one on the left.
As Margaret has mentioned, directive of the state, we will be out at each site individually to remeasure, look at the room itself, and do a new schematic on the room and just a general overall ADA compliance with each building as well. So,
Well, if it is 25 feet on both sides, you can't move it in any closer or anything. That's as
Right.
close as it can be.
I just don't see how it's
I agree with you, David. It looks like it's...
Yeah, I just don't see how it's possible.
The issue in this polling place, though, was not a dispute over where the line should be. It was a renegade election judge who was moving the line.
That was my understanding. I'll put it to you this way: as long as the one on the left stays where it is, we're good. If it moves further down, then that's where the complaint came about.
Okay. Yeah, when I was there later in the day, and they were up there, so and it was all on the left. So. Okay.
I was asking Chris where the handicap parking is.
So we're happy with the location. They just need to abide by it.
Oh, I think she's saying that the white spots there are the handicap parking.
yeah, it is. They are? Mm-hmm. There is maybe like 3. It was not a whole lot. See where the crosswalk is? That's where the curb cut is, and it comes off the parking lot there in the corner and across off of that grassy area.
Do you see the blue?
So there's 2 parking
Yeah.
spaces.
Oh, is that the white,
There's
or
2
the white, the
parking
handicap
spaces?
spaces?
How many people vote there?
Oh, Garrett Park has a
I can't say, Chrissy. I'd have to look it up for you.
Next election, we will go to stick measure.
and it has a high turnout.
You used to vote there.
Yeah, I used to vote there.
Designating more spots there is not an issue.
Oh, but there's additional parking to this too.
Yes.
That you're not seeing. It's
Gracie was
when you
I'm
drive.
talking about handicap.
Oh, handicap.
There's
Yeah.
only 2 spaces.
Where are you seeing the
Do you have
handicap?
handicap spaces?
Right
You
here.
can make any one of those handicap, right?
That's it.
Good. Yeah, we can add to that.
Yeah, well, we can
Put it like in the driveway.
You
we
can
can
put a
make some of
handicap
those
spots right
others.
up front.
Yeah.
Sure, we can.
Or yeah,
Like on that curve?
or on the other side
That'd
from
be
where
great.
what other ones are.
That'd be really
Yes,
great.
exactly.
Yeah, we could have
We
some
can designate
space,
more spaces
as long
there.
as it's
Because there's a lot more parking than what you're just seeing there.
yes, correct. Shall we go on?
Yes.
This is Sherwood High School, and there was questions about, this is the front of the building. It is consolidated, 608 and 1360, and there were questions about where we were aligning the line for Sherwood. These are the lines. That 25 feet comes right out to the curb from the front door, and then on both sides of the pillars there's 27 feet and 25 feet.
So what was the concern on this one?
There was just a general concern about the line. Now, I don't know if the judges had decided to move. The comments we had were
Dolly,
that
do
there
you
was
have any more specifics on these? Okay.
They felt it was too close? Or too far?
I don't have the specifics. Our lines were questioned.
Oh, we're questioned.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't know why.
But
It would be helpful to know what the concern was.
Yeah, I mean, I would think people would be pretty happy. They're right there.
Well, maybe they were unhappy. Maybe that was.
Well, or maybe the judges moved it further out because in the past it'd been further out. You know.
shall we go on?
More renegades. Yeah.
Seneca Valley High School. This is the front of the building, and we had some questions about where the lines were placed out there. But in conjunction to this, we've had lots of conversation about ADA compliancy. So we've done the two issues in tandem. We have the no electioneering as well as we've looked at the ADA. So the ADA comes up first on this presentation. There is a load. This is the front door to your right, and there is a curb cut there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a curb cut right there at that loading zone, and the door, the ADA door, is right across from that curb cut.
And that's the main door.
Back too far.
Is that the main door?
Is the curb cut next to the main door or next to a different door?
It's
you have
next to the main door.
This is you want to be at Seneca Valley.
Yeah, this is a show.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah, no, it just jumped.
I dropped the.
I think you just want to hit next.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like the curb
There's
cut
a
is
better.
right next to the front
See
door.
the sign,
Yeah.
and the front door, and the actual ADA door, Mr. Naaman, is right almost directly across from that loading zone.
Okay, great.
But
Okay.
then when you go in, into the building itself,
You need to turn to your right to go down a corridor.
right?
Okay.
Is there, I thought there were steps.
There's a kind of goes down a ramp, a slope.
Is there a ramp?
Yeah.
There were some issues, I'm trying to remember.
Okay, so now we'll continue. What we had discussed about hoping to put some parking along the yellow curve. That is a no parking zone. It is a fire lane. But we've looked at the lane itself. It is a wide lane, and we would like to put some temporary accessible parking on this side near the crosswalk and near that curb cut. So they would walk across at the crosswalk, and then come to the curb cut.
Right, you're
For
talking-
handicap only.
Yes,
Right, where the
it
green-
would be
where the
3
green-
handicap spaces.
Okay.
Where the green grass is.
Yes, it would
right?
be along that curve there. This is another view, another the no parking zone, and another curb cut. And one thing that's important to note is we have the curb cuts and the crosswalks, but we also have
Benches.
benches.
Oh, there.
There they are. They're, this is close to where the actual handicap parking is. So if someone was to park at the marked parking, handicap parking, and felt tired as they were going along the walk to the building, there are places that they can rest. In the area where the doors are, there are several benches, as well as there are benches along the walkway.
Isn't that the exit when they vote? Or is it?
It's on the other side.
Oh, it's on the other side?
Yeah, it's a little, if you see the whole building, you come down this walkway here and then around the corner, and the cafeteria is right there.
That would have been an exit.
I imagine some people come out of there, but that's not directly out of the cafeteria. They have to come back down the corridor and then come out there. So those are things that we're looking at to make the handicap accessibility better.
Okay.
So where were the temporary spaces you said you wanted to create?
Along the
Right along this side.
Right along.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then this is the actual lines that were drawn. There are two, the 66 and the 65 are across the street where we were talking about putting the handicap parking on a level grassy area. And then on the sidewalk 32 feet, and then we could put 32 feet on the north side.
Why 32 and not 25? And why 65?
Well, 65 and 66 is when you walk from the sidewalk across to that grassy area. We wouldn't be having them in the lane, and the closest other than the sidewalk is to walk across that lane.
Where the benches were, how far is from the benches you showed us?
Those benches are further than the 32. The 32 are closer to the door than those benches were.
They are.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
Chris, I don't understand the measurement. How that 65 and that 66? 66 is closer to the entrance than 65.
A lot closer.
I mean,
yeah, I don't either.
I think this is a perception problem. When you're at the door and you measure like a diagonal out to that grassy area to the upper right, that's 65 feet. And if you measure diagonally going to the left, it's 66 feet to a comfortable area to stand. And then coming around the corner along the sidewalk, it's about 32 feet.
Correct me, Chris, the measurement is to the bottom point of the triangle, not to where the number appears, correct?
Well, the bottom point of the triangle on the left looks like it's in the building.
It's hard proportionately to make that triangle point exactly. Allison, when I look at it, I think of it as the center of the triangle.
Center of the triangle, okay.
Again, just a reminder, we're going to be looking at all of these again this summer.
Well, you're asking us our opinion.
Yeah, can you just tell me
No,
where the signage is?
We're just showing you where they were.
Probably right about there.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, because that's the entrance, correct?
And then there's handicap parking down here.
I know.
But
I just wanted to...
the loading sign is, it was the loading sign, if you remember, Gracie, we can go back, was
No, that
just
doesn't help
above
me
the
because that's apples
crosswalk.
and oranges. It doesn't look the same.
we're going to look
Show
at
us the loading sign on the thing with the triangles.
Okay.
You're looking in the summer, so
Okay. Where is the loading?
The loading sign, the crosswalk is right there. The loading sign is probably right in there if I could hold still.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Can you go back to the picture with, that picture. So you're saying that these benches right here,
That the 32 feet as I recall, kind of comes sort of to the corner of the building there. It's the no parking sign is probably about where the 32 feet was. And that's right off the corner of that piece of, or part of the building that jets out.
Right.
Okay.
And then the 60 class would be over with that
Going
car?
across, you would be walking from the front door, because the front door is under,
Yeah. Like a little
under a
porch.
sheltered
Right,
area.
right.
From, you walk out, measuring from the front door, under the sheltered area, across the sidewalk, across the lane. And right as you get across the lane, there's curb there, and there's a grassy flat area that people could stand and meet people as they come down that sidewalk and stare to the crosswalk.
So this precinct, the complaint was that we boxed the campaigners in too tightly. And we did not, this was one of the precincts
Too
where...
tightly to where?
Well, let's look at, I don't know if it's too tightly close to the front door on
Although
the
the board
sidewalk.
has become more
They
accommodating.
probably all wanted to be
places.
in the 32 area.
Some boundaries
Right.
are still not practicable for electioneering.
Well,
In the future, please start with the premise that candidates of every persuasion and party have a First Amendment right to communicate their positions to voters.
Right.
And as long as they do not coerce or intimidate voters, campaigners should be able to come close to the 25-foot limit. This arose in, and then there's a list of precincts that includes 908. So that was the complaint.
Where is that in the letter?
That's the only place I see it
Okay.
referenced in the letter.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely need to revisit this one.
Well, and there, the map that you sent us electronically had 32 feet on both sides,
Those sides, yes.
but where I can't quite figure out where that is.
32, let's go back to the door. Here is the front door, Mr. Naaman. The 30, if you walk out and you would turn that corner, if you measure from the middle door and walk out and turn the corner, 32 feet is just sort of up at the corner of the
Are you
building.
measuring from the door, or are you taking a straight line out and then measuring?
I usually go on a diagonal
Right.
rather than to come straight
Right,
out and then
right.
make a left or a right.
Right.
I see a
Like a
point to
person would
measure
walk.
to,
Right.
and then I
And-
measure
right.
diagonally from the door.
Okay.
Well,
And
I think
why 32 feet and not 25?
You don't want to be too close to the door.
I think all of these issues,
Yes.
I mean, and we want to look at the last two, but recognizing what was raised and what we're seeing here, let's mark these as ones to really try and figure out when you're going back over every one of these.
Right.
But noting that, you know, specifics were raised with this, for example,
Okay.
and where it is and what we might be able to figure out better. Especially recognizing in primaries, we're going to have a lot of candidates and, you know, paraphernalia and tables and, you know, they need space.
Right. Shall we go on?
Yeah, please.
Temple Emmanuel was part of that group. This is the front door, and the steps come into a courtyard. That is the ramp that goes up to the front door for handicap purposes. This is looking out from the front door through the wall that cordons off the courtyard. And this is where the lines were suggested. Both those triangles sit right outside of the brick wall that closes off the courtyard.
The concern.
And this was an issue with the judge.
Right, exactly. The concern, according to the letter, was that not where we set the boundaries, but where the judge moved them to.
Evidently, there must have been some dissension between our mindset about where these triangles should be set.
I want to say, am I crazy if I say this had some religious implications?
I don't think so.
No, not with, at this
I don't think so.
I thought there was an issue that the judge raised on that. Oh, yeah, Dolly?
No, this one is not in this list of 5 that you have here.
No, it's separate, and it's
Yeah. It was separate because
it's about the judge. It says the election boundaries.
The issue was that one of the judges, not the chief judge,
We
but one of the
can't hear you on the
judges
recording,
came
Helen.
out twice and moved, just arbitrarily picked up people's things and moved them, and they had to go back in and tell the chief judge, who came out and changed them, but it happened in the primary and the general, so the recommendation on Margaret's memo from the last time was that it's being referred to the election judge recruitment personnel for investigation. So it's a different issue. It's
Okay,
the judge
okay.
coming out after the chief judge set the boundaries. Another judge just arbitrarily came out and said, no, we're moving them. He's moving them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some issue though.
Shall we go on?
Yes.
Well, so what are we doing about the
Well,
the
this will
judge?
be the same situation.
Well,
where we
the
will
boundaries are
review
fine.
this, and then we will have, at this
Are we
point,
taking action against or dealing with
This-
the election judge?
this will be a training issue. This is part of the evaluation that Margaret mentioned earlier, and then this particular.
This is not a
group
training
of-
issue. This is a
Compliance issue.
Yes, thank you. Compliance. You know, and this person needs to be removed as an election judge in the future.
I will double check and make sure that we have the name of the judge.
Well, since it occurred in the primary and the general, I would hope we, and frankly should have been dealt with between those 2 elections.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along.
Right. Now, this is Oakland Terrace. This is the main entrance, and just closer to the main entrance. All of this is under a portico. It's all covered. And this is the I had our mapping person put 25 feet on there so that you could have a perspective. That's about halfway out the portico from the front door. Is the 25
no,
feet?
it's this picture's not right. The entrance is up where the 3 triangles are in a row is where the entrance is. Where you're pointing to looks to be.
The door is right there.
Okay.
She's saying it's under the portico.
Okay. The problem is the handicap parking is up there.
Yes.
And over here are stairs going down here.
Yes.
And when you go inside, what you end up with is a very long ramp that makes you go basically kind of up and around in order to get up here. Well, and the voting was in this room over here. Meanwhile, there are 2 doors right here. One could be called in and one could be called out that go to this parking lot right over here. And when I left Oakland Terrace, that's what they did. They moved it so that the entrance and exit were on this side so that people could park right next to it and go inside instead of having to go all the way around.
Well, that was the intention all along, that should be the disabled entrance. The entrance, the main entrance where voters come in is the front door.
But why?
Because the state requests that the local boards select polling places that provide the voters cover. So if there's a line utilizing that disabled entrance, they will line up outside, whereas if you use the main entrance, they can be covered and sheltered.
Well, you can find ways to get them into the building and covered as well, based on how you set up the room.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing here, I mean, there really is no parking that is convenient to the so-called front door. You're not allowed to park on the driveway there. Even the handicap parking is not close enough, really, for that. And all of the parking is on the same side of the building where the polls were.
Well,
and where the other
different
entrance is.
there's different
2
perspectives. First of all, if you are walking and you live across Pliers Mill, you're going to walk up to the front door, and there's parking all along Pliers Mill for people. So to close off that door, we need the door to shelter voters and have some way of lining them up inside the building. But voters are not only going to drive in and park on this right-hand side. That we have walkers and we have drivers that will park along the Pliers Mill as well.
Can you show me, friends, when they walk in, how do they get to the voting? Like, they go.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's the door. So
Okay.
we've come up and we're going
We're
under
going
this
in.
portico and we go in.
Uh-huh.
This is the cafeteria here.
Right.
So you come in, you pass some of the offices and so forth and go down a corridor. And then there are two doors on this side of the cafeteria that come in from the corridor. Or there's two doors on this side that are exterior doors.
So is this like a little hallway from here to here?
Yes. You come
Okay.
in,
And-
and offices are there, and then you walk by.
And one very huge ramp that takes you around the side of the
No,
building.
yeah, I
basically.
know.
Yeah.
So if they went into the disabled entrance, right? You could still use that hallway for shelter,
You
right?
could.
You could still have them snake around
You
the
could. You could.
You'd have to bring them through the voting area and take them back into the corridor to have them
Well,
line
you
up.
could have the voting area be at the other side of the room. And you could have the line be, from the entrance.
Are you saying the disabled entrance takes them right into the voting area?
Yes, and there's another entrance just after it. So there's really two entrances that are right next to that parking. And while it's certainly true that there'll be some people who'll park on the street compared to parking in the parking lot, I'm pretty sure that most people are going to park in the parking lot if there's parking available there.
Are we not allowed to have two entrances? Yes, we can have two entrances, right?
We do this on I'm not going to say numerous occasions, but there are occasions where we feel that we need to accommodate handicap by designating something closer and easier for them to get into the room. One other issue with having people come around to the side of the building, if we are advertising that this is Pliers Mill, I think it's 6770, don't hold me to that, Pliers Mill, and you have a new voter who comes up and wants to go into the building, they're naturally going to go to the main entrance.
So all you need is signage for that.
Yeah.
All right, we hear your recommendations,
Yeah,
and we will, as we go forward, when we look at all of these locations, we will review your recommendations.
Well, that should be accommodated. I mean, yeah, for handicap, without any doubt. The parking there and the entrance into those.
And there's right there is the door, and there's a curb cut.
Two doors.
There's two doors, and this curb cut is ADA compliant in front of that second door.
So the people who are doing the electioneering, who are they doing the electioneering for? So the door's on the other side.
The electioneering is the one issue.
Yeah, there won't be electioneering.
The
down there.
electioneering between the doors is really that's the hard part.
And that's really close. Because if that's the
Yes,
election.
yes,
right
it
there.
is. It is really close. That's true.
Could I
That's true.
add that you look at Springbrook High School very carefully when you're redoing it, because it has some of the same issues you're doing with this with Seneca.
Seneca?
Well, Seneca or Oakland Terrace? This was Oakland Terrace.
with that you have with
We're actually
Seneca Valley. It's
they were
the
between
entrance
people were parking over there and
to
walking
voting
down
is the
stairs,
main
and the electioneers
entrance.
were
You
next to
pass
the
an entrance to the cafeteria where they're voting. All of the handicap is down by the cafeteria. You have to go all the way up to the main entrance, go down the corridor, and then come all the way back down to the cafeteria to vote.
Okay.
And it makes no sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to take, we've put a lot of focus on the electioneering boundaries, certainly, in recent elections. But I think the whole handicap issue needs a really good look in terms of parking, accessibility, how far they have to walk when they get into a facility, etc.
I would add, not just for the handicapped. I think that if we're going to make people park on the side of the building, walk past two entrances to get into the building, go around the side in order to come in and then come back, that's asking, something that makes it less convenient for voters. And you don't have to be disabled to find that to be, kind of off-putting.
Okay. Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus I did not include in this presentation. We're hoping to change Knights of Columbus into a new elementary school. Rather than using the private facility, there's a new elementary school right there. We used to use it, and then it went under renovation and was reconstructed, and now it's open and available again.
Good. Okay.
Okay, just some final issues with regards to issues that were brought before the board. Issues of lines overall, there were no lines all day long. Mr. Naaman did visit Leisure World based on some reports that there were long lines. He did not report any long lines, but made some recommendations for electioneering. Vote flipping. Supposedly there were vote flipping at early voting and election day. The board attorney, numerous members of the staff went to locations, were not able to recreate the error. As reported in a previous meeting, the state board ordered us to test all of the units that were taken out of service. None of them had a vote flipping. We had 18 screen freezes. We had 6 battery issues. We had monitors that cracked and card readers. We had Challenger Watcher issues. Part of that was at mostly early voting. The state board sent out specific Challenger, brand new Challenger Watcher instructions in May of last year, and then after numerous days of complaints, on the second to the last day, they advised the local boards to permit additional disclosure of information. We only had one report of aggressive electioneering that was resolved by one of our board members. Styluses were brought and were replaced with pencil packs with the erasers. Roamers did come back in and picked up pencils and distributed. Election judges not following election lines. We received a complaint from about Baltimore City. We notified the city that we had fielded such a complaint. That gentleman also complained to the state board. List maintenance issues were brought to the board with regards to non-citizens, death, out-of-state registrations. The staff, as reported earlier, working on list maintenance. Eric is updating every 60 days. More signage issues for clarity that were brought to us by the board or the board attorney was at Matsunaga Elementary School, Gaithersburg Elementary School, and Gaithersburg High School. The soccer quarterfinals at Wheaton High School, that was ultimately resolved by the school system as well as the police. And then the omission of Rose Lay on the ballot aid. Proofing of that ballot aid was not completed to the requirements of the department. Changes have been put in place. Staff is recommending that we varnish sample ballots for use on election day. And then those are all of the reported comments that I have received from the board members, board attorney, Democratic Party, and members of the public.
Okay. Well, thank you I think that completes all of our reports now from the gubernatorial election, does it not?
There's the communication report.
Yeah, no, but I meant...
yes.
Oh, is
yes.
that part of the
yes.
gubernatorial? Oh, okay.
One last item.
There you go. Take it away, Margie.
Sent to everybody in advance a communication report for the general election, and it covers, I know at the meeting I missed last month, I know the request was to try to address a wider range of dates for the information rather than just the specific time when the call center was in place. I had a bit of a problem with that. I was able to expand the dates for calls that came in through MC311, but because of a software issue that I was unaware of with our integrated voice response system, I was not able to do that. So I've got more of a breakdown from the call center than I do from the others. So if we go through this, try to be real brief here. The Board of Elections call center was in operation from October 12th through November 21st. We had 3 temporary employees, 1 bilingual Spanish, and we had 1 permanent employee serving as the supervisor. Hours were 8:30 to 5, except during early voting when we were open from 8:30 to 8. During this period of time, the call center answered 2,915 calls, which is an average of 97 per day, of which 31 were requesting assistance in Spanish. Attached to the report is a breakdown of those calls. The integrated voice response system, if you call in 8500 or VOTE, comes in through the IVR, automatically connects, and that provides detailed information, as you know, on voter registration and absentee deadlines, etc. The attached statistics to the report show that between June 27th and December 19th, 9,674 calls were handled. Also breaks down what section those calls were coming in for. So that's in there as well. MC311, anybody, you all will recall that our calls do not get redirected to 311. However, if someone dials 311 and requests voter assistance, that's how we're getting these tracks. Between June 27th and December 19th, they handled 413 calls. During early voting, they handled 76 calls, and on November 3rd and 4th, 73 calls. Media and visitors, we didn't have a lot of requests for the general election. There were 10 appointments scheduled for visitors and media representatives to visit polling places. Of the 10, 6 were groups from the International Federation of Election Systems. This was the first time that we utilized previous board members and previous staff members to assist with election day visits, which freed up the board to handle other business that was necessary. The new process seemed to work quite well, and staff is recommending that we continue with that in the future. We did have a problem with the IFES groups in that 4 of the 6 groups ended up not showing up, which was a little bit frustrating to the folks that were waiting for them. I did contact IFES regarding this. They sent me a letter assuring me that that would not happen in the future. So we will be working with them to make sure communication is better. If they get tied up, they'll call and let us know.
Have they had visitors before with us?
Absolutely.
And we've not had an issue? Because we've certainly had issues of people not showing up.
It was never brought to my attention in the way that it was this time. So I can't categorically say yes or no. I believe that we have had problems with them in the past, but this time around I was getting calls from the folks that were out there waiting. Have you heard from them? Blah, 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 blah. So it became obvious to me in a bigger fashion this time around.
Well,
so.
I think that whole thing needs to be I think we need 1 or 2 locations, period, and, you know, we're not doing these all over the county and having people
well,
waiting
and we
hours
can certainly do that. I mean, in a heavy election cycle like the presidential, we tend to have a lot more interest.
Yeah, it'll
and
be
so
huge,
the main reason we initially spread it out to 7 places was we had 7 board members, and so we weren't inundating one particular chief judge with everybody coming to his precinct. I hear what you're saying. I think if we move forward with having the former board members and some former staff members helping out, if we have maybe 4 people handling it, maybe I could open it up to 4 locations. Pretty much they want locations that are down in Bethesda area because it's close to get in and out of DC, which is where they're all coming from. So I think that we can modify it slightly, maybe not down to 2, but certainly narrow it down from the 7. And if we keep going with this new way of doing it, you all, the current board members, won't be as obliged to sitting around and waiting for folks. They'll be able to help out where we have needs. Media advisories, as you know, they're all distributed in English via the electronic delivery system Gov Delivery, and they're also distributed in Spanish via email through a general distribution list that's maintained by the County Office of Public Information. English media advisories are distributed to all elected officials as well as all individuals appearing on the ballot, and several county agencies who in turn forward them to their distribution lists. There are currently 3,278 subscribers to Gov Delivery. When you include the number of people on distribution lists like the County Council and regional service centers, the media advisories are ultimately reaching close to 10,000 people. A sample report I attached just showing the kind of stats that we get in terms of when the report is received. In addition to the electronic distribution, we of course publicize the media advisories through our social media, our website, Facebook page, and Twitter. 30 media advisories were issued from June 28th through October 31st, and I attached a chart showing all of that for you as well. The County Office of Public Information assisted again in providing 3 public service announcements for us. Their focus is voter registration, early voting, and Election Day preparation. We utilized Comcast and Verizon Internet and Comcast and Telemundo cable television and distributed the PSAs in both English and Spanish throughout the county. I provided an analysis from Comcast on that. The Office of Public Information also created an outreach video that the election judges used at some of their events. It was scripted by BOE and featured several election judges who were able to provide different views on what they get out of the experience and encourage others to volunteer as an election judge. The video was also distributed to the county's cable channel and the local PEG channels and was run at various times.
Was that also in Spanish?
That was not. That was not. The election judges are required to read and speak English, and so that portion of our operation is not mandated with the DOJ Spanish mandate, if I'm correct in that. Everything else we have is translated into Spanish, but the election judges have to be able to read and write in English.
No, I understand that.
We did, I'm sorry, we did in fact have 1 or 2 of the election judges that were interviewed during that video piece were Spanish speaking, and they did say something in Spanish. There was some Spanish in the video.
In the
outreach video.
No, I understand that, but where was complaining about not having enough bilingual judges, and that usually is our biggest threshold of getting more bilingual judges and getting the word out there and so on. So I understand where you're coming from. No, we're not mandated, but when it makes sense to have, just like we have the Spanish, the other Spanish videos on the voting. Well, to have Spanish judges reaching out to others who say, if you're bilingual, okay, or I'm a teacher, I'm MCPS, or I'm a police officer, or I'm president of the PTA, and I volunteer as a bilingual judge on my precinct. When that makes sense?
We can certainly look at that for future videos. All of the outreach announcements and requests for volunteers to serve as election judges are distributed in both English and Spanish. And Alberto, of course, is out there on the Hispanic radio stations and TV stations.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as having an actual judge.
Right.
Okay. As having been a judge myself, it's not the same thing as having an actual judge who's gone through the process, who volunteers or does this every election, as to have Gilberto.
Sure. No, we can certainly,
I love Gilberto. He's great.
Is this the first time we've done this type of video?
This is the first time we did it.
Well,
and there
certainly in looking at, what we want to do with outreach and with, I think Gracie's point on this is right on the mark. And, to have that would be
and you already have the script.
Dynamite.
You already have all, you already have all the accessibility.
Right.
So it really doesn't take much of an extra effort to actually do it.
No, we can certainly do that.
That would be great.
Not at all. We did have at least one Spanish-speaking election judge in it. We can certainly look to include another one and certainly represent other demographics as well in the county. The Montgomery County Recreation Guide, staff worked with the Department of Recreation to include advertisements in their quarterly publication, which describes all the programs they offer, and it's distributed to all the homes in the county. They provided a color 2-page ad to us in these quarterly publications at no charge.
Oh, really?
So we're looking to expand on that. If we do receive the additional outreach monies, I'm going to be interested in also paying for another 2-page ad so that we don't lose the message of what we've got out there, but that we're also able to incorporate the message on the new voting system and how easy it is to use it and the differences there. Additional advertising efforts. Advertising was placed in the Gazette and El Tiempo Latino regarding accessibility of polling places and election judge recruitment. Those are mandated. We also placed signs in all the ride-on buses providing information on registration and absentee ballot application deadlines, as well as dates, times, and locations for all early voting centers. And of course, the Future Vote students are always invaluable to us. They go out to the county metro stations and MARC train stations and help distribute information on early voting in the days leading up to early voting.
The signs on the ride-on, they're provided free to us?
No, we get, they are placed for free. All we have to do is pay to have them printed.
Develop, okay.
And so we develop them in-house and we send them to the print shop who prints them for us, and then they're sent over to the ride-on garage to be put in.
And they're all, are they just internal on the buses?
Oh, yeah.
So to have a big sign on the back.
They're not going to do that for free.
Oh, okay.
But it's a 14 by, no, it's not even that. I've got one in my office. It's a fairly wide sign, and it goes above the driver. So when you're sitting in the bus and looking straight ahead, you're looking at it. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're not the usual signs along the sides.
Not in the side, they don't have the space in the side.
They're not on the outside of the bus.
No,
They're
no,
on
no,
the
I
inside
mean the
of the bus.
inside.
That's Metro.
The inside.
Yeah, you think of the Metro.
They don't have
That's Metro.
space. There's all window.
I haven't been
On
on
the
a bus in a while.
They're all the way like at the front.
Yeah.
They are. That's the only,
Right.
okay.
So when you're sitting down, you're looking straight
Okay.
ahead and you're looking at the sign.
And do we get anything in metros?
We've not explored that. I mean, our advertising money is spent, without having to go anywhere else. If we get any additional money, I'm happy to look in to see what we could do there.
I think it'd be worth
It might be something,
Yeah.
in terms of dates and stuff, we could even look into doing something jointly with DC and Virginia, because the trains they're not just going to be in Maryland.
Well, if the
or at least
elections,
the DC.
the
elections are not gonna
problem
be the
is,
same time.
yeah.
No, I know, but
the
they can
November
have the
election will be.
dates.
November.
Do you know what I mean? You can have an election ad there and have, Maryland
Calendar.
dates, and then Virginia or
Well, we
DC
might also
dates.
check with the Council on
board.
Governments. We work with them as well, and we've done some joint advertising with them. That might be something that we could look at, depending on when the dates are for the others. Early voting is handled differently in each of the jurisdictions,
Well,
so
yeah.
it does get complicated when you're doing
Well,
a
it
joint
would be
ad,
limited
but
what we could do, but I'm just thinking if
certainly
it
for
was
the
a way to
general election, we
utilize
might
it.
be able to do something, because the general election would be the same. So
Yeah.
we'll work with COG and see what we can find out on that. And the lessons learned, I just have down, the staff needs to remember the importance of advising the call center when mailings are being sent out or issues arise, because they're the ones getting the calls and they need to be aware of what's going on and be prepared for the additional volume of calls. We need to increase the training period for call center staff to 2 weeks. And of course, we always do this anyway, but prior to the next election, we would be revising the call center manual. We'll also include some additional general topics to arm them with as much information as possible for when they're taking calls. So that is the
Okay.
report.
Any questions? Okay.
Yes.
A couple of questions. I don't need this now, but the first page of the call center statistics has totals by week, and I gather that is week 5 the week right before the election.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great to get the associated dates. Would be very
Okay.
very helpful. And then the second chart has a number of categories, in fact, maybe a majority of the ones listed that are quite general, including one that's called general questions, one that's called problems, one that's called complaint, and one that's called other. And then also, one that's called transfer, and one that's called Spanish call without any indication as to what the call was actually about. And I'm just wondering if we have any kind of sense as to what what those kinds of calls are about, because obviously, that, and again, I don't need it to second, but those are pretty general.
I'll certainly see if staff broke it down that way. What I can tell you, there's a difference in the total number of calls between the first chart and the second chart, and that is because, as an example, if somebody called in and requested a Spanish speaker, it was recorded as a Spanish call, but then it would also have been recorded as absentee or VR.
Right, but like week 508 out of 1,009 calls are listed as general questions.
Right.
Whatever that means.
Right. I will go back to staff and follow up and let you know if that information was, if there's any other kind of breakdown. I mean,
right. And then just I'm sorry.
I just clarify a little further in what we go to staff with. Are you would like to know how, would you like, am I correct that you would like a description of what each of these categories mean? And then which ones were you looking for more substantive analysis of what the calls were about? I got that for Spanish call, you wanted to know what the Spanish callers were calling
complaint, problems, general questions. I don't know whether transfer call, again, it may be that they're already there in other places, I don't know.
I believe that they are.
But basically we have a category for other, complaint, problems, and general questions. Let's take as a given that transfer call probably is not the only thing that somebody wrote. And that's in addition to Spanish call.
Okay.
Where all of them are, really, it doesn't really tell us, what kind of concerns did people have? What kind of things did people not understand from whatever we mailed to them, or or whatever. And then the only other thing I was going to comment on is that it's too bad that we don't have the better data on the non-call center things. I personally am very troubled by the fact that essentially callers to our office get an automated voice, answering the call most of the time. I'm particularly concerned. We're going to be doing a lot of outreach for the new voting system for the elections, and I think anything we can do that humanizes our process, I think, is going to be good for outreach. And I understand there are costs associated and all of that. And I understand that it's efficient sometimes to have a recording that says, here's the information about, and people who want that, can get that. But if I call the Board of Elections with a question and I want to know, some things, if I have a specific question, I think it should be our goal to try and make it as easy as possible for people to find the person with the right information.
Well, and I certainly understand that. I am one of those people that tends to be very impatient when I make a phone call and I get an IVR. I hit a couple buttons, which normally will get you to an operator, because I just don't have the patience to listen. Mm-hmm. And certainly many of the people that call our office do that. If they are more patient than I am and they listen to the recording, we give them the options. We give them what we have found to be the key things that people are calling in here for, so that the questions are answered on that. But there's always an opportunity for them to press a number and reach an operator, and then at that point we would have somebody provide assistance. I hear what you're saying, and we can certainly look at that. Of course, that requires staff to be able to answer phones and do all that as well. So there's all sorts of things that need to be considered, but I do understand what you're saying.
With the 311 calls, the almost 500 calls, those are not in the data.
They're only in the 311 data.
Right.
That is correct.
So we don't know what kind of calls those were, if they were questions, if they were concerns, complaints. We have no way.
Well, they are broken down by area. We don't know whether they're complaints or not. But on There is a page in there with 3 different breakouts of the statistics from MC 311. It shows by area, so you can see whether they're absentee, election judge, general questions, or voter registration.
Yeah, once again, we have general questions and other is 190 out of 413.
Right.
And doesn't break it down by language either, right?
No,
Whether
311
Spanish
does
or
not.
Chinese.
No.
Although they do have, right? They do have Spanish.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do have Spanish-speaking individuals in the call center.
The only reason I'd be interested about the general questions numbers for both is because if they are questions that are not on our most frequent asked questions on our website,
Exactly.
it will be helpful to make that information available on those questions.
Okay. I will be happy to check with not only our staff person who is in charge of the call center, but also with 311 to see if I can find out what categories they were putting into that.
That'd be great.
Okay, so you'll
And I will get back to the
get
board.
more information on that.
Yeah.
New voting system update, I think we've had it all. Is there any new business?
Not at this time.
Can I just thank the staff for the very nice card that you guys signed for the
Yes.
loss of my grandmother.
And I thank the staff as well.
Very much
very nice.
appreciated your thoughts and your prayers. Thank you.
Future meetings, our next meeting is May 18th, and we're going to have a little lunch, Subway lunch, prior to, as a big thank you to the staff on behalf of our board, and also welcoming the new members. It's a chance for the staff to see everybody together. Time-wise, I know in terms of when staff eats, we probably need to do it at 12. Would it make sense to move the board meeting up to 2 o'clock for that meeting?
Sure.
With proper notice, we can give that, because otherwise, I don't think we need 2.5 hours. Does that sound?
Yes.
Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and you'll get notice out to staff for it, and
Yes.
yeah.
Like the way I did that? I also want to point out that June 2nd at 2 p.m. will be the swearing in of the new board members, and I have arranged for the clerk of the court to be here at 2 o'clock. So all the board members will need to be sworn in at that time. And we'll do an orientation and try to answer any questions anybody has. And of course, don't forget the biennial conference, which is mandatory for all the board members, is June 9th through 12 in Ocean City. We're still waiting for an official agenda, and as soon as we get that, we'll get more information out. I do have a hold on hotel rooms and that type of thing, but I'll be in touch with everybody in advance of that.
So you need, at some point, we have to tell you the dates that we're going to be staying at the hotels, right?
The last time.
To be there the first 2 nights or whatever.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, reservations have already been made for everybody, and it's just a question of, taking out a room if you only want to stay one night, or taking out a night or something.
And do we?
When we get agendas?
I don't know. When will we get agendas?
That's a good question. Just to first state, the 10th is the mandatory date for board members. The 11th is optional. Really, the 9th and the 12th are not to discount the importance of getting there, early, getting there the night before, and being able to stay through the following day. But the meat of the conference is really the 10th and the 11th. The 10th is entirely run by the State Board of Elections. That is the biennial meeting.
And that will be the last agenda we will see.
What's
We
the
will
last agenda?
not see that agenda until the very last minute.
So you're
And we
saying
presume
you can
it's going to
expect
all be
that the
on the
10th
new voting system, or?
That's what I was just going to say. You can expect that the 10th will be very heavily discussions of the new voting system. I believe they are also planning to do their own orientation information in terms of the roles and responsibilities of the board, and what it's like to run the canvass, and the types of information that they feel needs to be communicated to board members. there's some parallel mandatory things for staff to participate in as well. There's been some discussion about that, but I really don't know. Ultimately, it's entirely up to the State Board of Elections and their staff how that day is structured. The following day, the 11th, which is optional for the board members to participate in, is run by the local boards of elections, is run by Mayo. And I did not bring my meeting folder in, but what I do know is that the first 2 sessions in the morning, I believe, will be breakout sessions. They will have 3 parallel sessions going on at each time. And then after lunch, there is a fairly lengthy presentation by our colleagues in Fairfax County, including some staff. They're going to have sort of a talk show format session where one of our colleagues is going to pepper the folks from Fairfax County with questions about their experience in implementing the same voting equipment that we're going to be using. It's going to be sort of an extended Q&A.
What day are you talking, Thursday?
That's on the Thursday, yes.
On Thursday.
So the 11th is when the Fairfax people are going to talk about their experience.
On the 11th, not on the 10th, yes.
What are the breakout sessions in the morning subjects?
Oh, I'm going to struggle to remember them off the top of my head. There will be one that is focused on election judge recruitment. There will be one that is focused on dealing with the public and the media. There will be one that is focused on there are 2 simultaneous sessions that are focused on the audits that the State Board of Elections performs of the local boards. One that is intended as a more general session for board members, and one that is intended as a more specific how to avoid technical issues that will cause you to get a negative audit finding session for staff. And I said there were 6.
I would
and
think
I've only
that would be
remembered
more
4.
a staff breakout,
Yeah,
isn't it?
this is
Not
staff
probably
break.
not.
So
I think that we should plan, since the 10th is mandatory.
9th and 10th.
So we definitely need to have
Tuesday night.
the 9th and the 10th. That we should all be there, because I don't think anybody wants to drive at dawn and get there.
Those rooms are already
I mean, you
booked for the
could,
9th and the 10th.
but there's no question about paying for 2 nights. Am I correct?
No, that we have that scheduled.
You already
But the
So-
evening of the 11th, there's very few. None of the staff will be staying the evening of the 11th.
Okay.
There's
you
no
all-
reason.
so you all
And the
coming back the 11th.
reservations have not been made for the evening of the 11th.
Yeah, reservations have
What
not.
time does it end on the 11th?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Okay.
That time.
So we'll get. I'd like to at the May meeting. We need all the details on this. That as you know, as you have them to date for that.
As soon
would
as
be
we
nice.
receive them, we will forward them to you.
Okay.
I've got it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?